Grannies have been singing about nuclear issues since the very first Grannies back in 1987. A story I'll tell you of acting in haste and repenting at leisure about nuclear waste. Plutonium kills in a terrible way, and for eons and eons it won't go away. And it's so long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know ya. This funky old world is a beautiful place, but you'll kill it with nuclear waste. Now grandkids have I, and I want them to thrive in a world that is safe for all creatures alive, with the sun on their face and the breeze at their nose, and joy in their hearts, but look how it goes. And it's so long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know ya. This funky old world is a beautiful place, but you'll kill it with nuclear waste. At our ancient age, we take the long view. We see that your short-sighted plans will not do. Your nuclear plants are wrong and are bad. So watch out, young fellers, you're making us mad. And it's so long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. So long, it's been good to know you. We declare this world a nuclear-free zone for your kids as well as our, your kids as well as our, your kids as well as our own. You might recognize this tune. We've got slightly different words here. Beneath the nuclear umbrella, we're as safe as we can be. McGinty's such a pleasant fella. He'll look out for you and me. We don't have to think about it. Our defense has been assured. What would we all do without it? Don't it make you feel secure? Are we supposed to sing another one?
Yeah.
Oh, keep going.
Okay. Well, how about the tritium tango?
Oh, it's the uranium.
Uranium tango. Yes. Sorry, we have the whole song. So we have uranium tonight.
I just have to get a B for that one. A B. I should have gotten a note for that. Uranium, please don't mind uranium. We know it's nasty. We're nobody's patsy. Da-da-da-da-da-da, uranium. The places where it comes from are turned into wastelands for at least 1,000 years. Da-dum-dum-dum, uranium. For miners, it's not much fun. The stuff is unlucky. It's gross and it's yucky. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And radon gas will knock you right on your bum. And so we implore you, don't mind uranium.
I'd like to invite all the speakers up to the stage. And while the speakers are coming up, I would like to introduce myself. And thank you all for coming. This is a great turnout for our first community meeting. There was a community meeting about this topic yesterday too. It was also a full house. So this is obviously a very important topic to the community. So happy you all made it. My name is, come on up, Roy. And any Simon Dean Paul? Simon Paul Dean? N.A. Sure. My name is Angela Bischoff. I work by day with the Ontario Clean Air Alliance. We are behind the coal phase out in the province, and now we are focusing on helping the province make better energy choices and invest in new nuclear projects. So, but my role here tonight as facilitator is as a volunteer. It's not a campaign of our organization, the GE plant on Lansdowne. Just wanted to give that proviso. And the goal of tonight really is to hear 6 speakers who have come from Peterborough, from Toronto, to speak with you tonight about some of the environmental health and legal impacts of this plant being in our community. So I would ask that everybody, I realize it's somewhat emotional, a heated issue, as I witnessed last night at a community meeting. I would ask that we all be very respectful as much as we can to all the speakers tonight. And I would also ask that we set some ground rules for the evening, just to avoid any potential conflict. And those 2 ground rules that I'd like to put out to you for agreement is no heckling and no personal insults. So there will be an opportunity for people to speak, but I would like to just put that out there and ask for agreement from the crowd. Can we see hands if we're in agreement with that? Great, I really appreciate that. So, also in terms of Q&A, because we have a really long list of speakers, I would like to suggest that we leave the Q&A till the end, so we hear all the speakers, and then we open the floor. There is a microphone. There is also pieces of paper that I will just send through the audience, and I would invite you to write your questions and comments down as we go, because you're just going to get so much information in the next hour of presentations that I want to encourage you to actually write your comments on this piece of paper. So I'll just send them through the audience. And we will also collect those sheets of paper at the end of the meeting. So for example, I would love to be able to go through those sheets of paper tomorrow and see if, 20 of you said, well, I need more information about this, or what did she mean by that? And then we can follow up. We can provide some answers, and we can send those answers out to people via the email list that we would invite you all to sign up for. So on the table over there are a whole bunch of handouts. There's books for sale, buttons, handouts on the health impacts that were created for tonight. There's one on the health impacts of the GE plant. And maybe I could get someone to grab that whole stack and distribute those, because those are specifically, if you would, yeah, they're specifically relevant to the GE plant, and they were produced for tonight by a volunteer. So yeah, if Lynn or Carrie could distribute those to the audience. There are a whole bunch of other handouts also, about broader handouts about nuclear power, but that one is specific to health and air impacts. I would encourage everyone to take. And also, please leave us your email address. There's a few sign-up sheets moving at the back of the room and on the sign-up on the table with all the free handouts. Please leave us your email address. We'll keep you updated. We're already planning another community meeting in a few weeks where we're bringing in Dr. Gordon Edwards, who is Canada's most preeminent nuclear critic. And so he'll have an opportunity to speak to you with his broad range of expertise. So if you left us your email address, we will stay in touch with you. We also have a few Facebook page groups that will post them as well. But not everybody does Facebook, and email will be able to be more directly connected to you. Just to confirm, there are lots of video cameras tonight. There is someone in the room who has electrosensitivities and has requested that people turn off their cell phones. If you're comfortable with that, please do that for the health of her and maybe other people in the room who haven't mentioned it to me.
If you want to turn off the airplane mode, you can still take pictures with your cell phones. And actually, we're encouraging everyone to take pictures and then share it through your own social media and start putting your, doing your own journalism and media, sharing their experience.
Thanks, Rex.
And we're live streaming it as well.
It is also being live streamed tonight. Right now, this is all being live streamed. We put it out on the Facebook page and a few other pages to tell people if they can't make it to the meeting, they can just flip on their computer and be watching it in the comfort of their own home. And that, if you want to tweet that to your friends or something.
It's Occupy Toronto live stream.
Occupy Toronto
live stream.
Live stream.
Just Google that.
Just
yeah.
Google that and you will find the link for
And
that.
it's in the archives as well.
And it will also be archived. This whole evening will be archived in the Occupy Toronto website. So thank you very much for you folks for providing us with that service. Okay, lastly, the bathrooms are downstairs, one floor to the right of the stairwell, and we have to be out the door by 9 o'clock. They shut the doors at 9. So at 8:45, we'll be closing up the meeting. I'm sure people will still be wanting to talk. Maybe we can reconvene at a local restaurant or bar if someone wants to think about where we could invite people. And some people will be marching en masse back down to the plant, convening and speaking more about the issue.
And just looking at the building and taking a bit of a toxic tour of the building.
Great. Okay. The rules that we hopefully we'll all agree to is no heckling and no personal insults. So I hope we can all agree to that. We'll have a good community conversation, and I recognize there are very differing opinions here tonight. Okay, so could I invite all the speakers up to take a chair, and there are 4 politicians that we're very proud to have here tonight that we want to give them a few minutes each to address the issue. So the speakers can grab a seat. The politicians, come on up. We have MP of the riding, Andrew Cash. Thank you. We have MP, do we have Joe Shine here? Yes. MPP of the riding, Joe Shine. We have MPP, Sherry DeNovo of Parkdale High Park, neighboring riding. Yes, thank you very much. Come on up, all of you, and please address the crowd. Thank
you. Okay. Can you hear this? Yeah, okay. It's not every day that a microphone is too short for me. So, well, welcome to DPNC. I'd like to thank DPNC for having this event, for offering this space to our community, not just tonight, but many, many nights. It's actually one of the cornerstones of this community. We don't have a lot of public space that we can meet in, and this is one of our crucial places. So I'd like to thank DPNC for this tonight. And I'd like to thank Andrea and the organizers for allowing us and me to address you very quickly at the beginning, because I know we've got a lot of experts here tonight that are going to give you a lot of information. I also got to say that it's really an honor for us here in our community to have such a treasure trove of information at our fingertips tonight. And wouldn't it have been good to have this information over the last 50 years? I unfortunately can only stay for a couple of minutes because tonight in my office we are doing a citizenship welcoming event for new Canadians who have got their citizenship, who live in our riding, and so I think it's a very important thing, and it had been planned many weeks ago, so unfortunately I've got to dash off after this. I want to say to you that, like many in this community, I am really surprised, really shocked by what I've learned over the last few weeks. Like many of you, I had no idea this was here. I have many questions, like you do. And tonight's event, last night's event, some of the other things that have been happening in the media, some of the dialogues that we've been having with the regulator, the CNSC, and with GE, and with the community have given us a first step towards some kind of path forward. And I gotta say, when you find out after 50 years that you've been living right next to a nuclear facility that you had no idea was there, and I've talked to some folks here tonight that live right beside it and had no idea, well then something really did go wrong with the process. Something went wrong with the communication process, and when you look at the license, it clearly states that part of the license is a public information program. Clearly, that public information program, regardless of what the federal government, regardless of what Joe Oliver, the Minister of Natural Resources, has to say, that public information program failed. And what I want to say to you tonight is that what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of days is calling on the minister, calling on the CNSC to come to a public meeting with the community so that they can and we can share information, find out what's going on, because that never happened during the review of this license. So we have to do that. That's the first step. So that's the first step that we are going to be doing in this riding, and we'll keep you very much posted on that. And secondly, and then I'll turn it over, we have requested of the company to bring residents in on a tour, on tours. They have indicated that they are willing to do that. We will be holding their feet to the fire on that one, because the residents in this community need to know. We need to understand what is going on inside those walls. We have to feel comfortable, we have to feel safe, and we may in the end feel that way, or we may not. And that's what we are endeavoring to try to find out here. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity tonight. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to listening to your concerns, hearing the information, and acting in the best interest of you, the residents in this community. So thank you so much.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to the meeting here tonight. Thanks to all the organizers. My name is Jonah Sean. I was elected to represent this riding provincially in 2011. I live in this riding. I've lived and worked here for a long time. As Andrew mentioned, this is a meeting space that has provided an arena for conversation in this community for many years, and I'm glad that we're meeting here tonight. I learned about the uranium site at Dupont in Lansdowne through the newspaper just a few weeks ago. We had a meeting last night organized by a residents group at Bloor and Dufferin. And at that meeting, I asked folks there who knew about that. I want to ask the same question tonight. Before the recent press coverage, who in this room actually knew about the site and what was happening there? Fair to say there's maybe about 10 hands in the room? Okay, and a room about 60 last night. I think there was about 5. This is a major concern that we don't have information. This is a changing community. It's changing in many ways. The history here is industrial. Lots more people are moving in to live here. But one of the ways it's changing is that people expect to be part of the conversation in the community. People know that they have a right to understand what's happening around them. And so I found out through the newspaper that this site had its license renewed in 2010 for 10 years. And I never knew about that. And that's not right. Andrew and I and our office staff have been, as soon as we heard about this, have been looking into this, have been fielding questions from the community, trying to get answers. I'm not a scientist, but I am here to represent folks and to advocate on behalf of people here. If you have questions when you leave the room, the questions that are being provided to some of the organizers here tonight, I'd also like the chance to be able to help get answers for people. We did request a factory tour of the site a couple of days ago, and we went into that site.
Questions.
And we asked, actually the regulator, the nuclear regulator for Canada was in that room, and Andrew and I asked him, we said, why, who knew about this? What kind of information was provided to the community? And they said that they'd put out a one-day ad in the Toronto Star, and that was the information that was given. And we learned that the hearings themselves were held in Ottawa. When I ran to win an election here, I knew that I had to do better than putting my picture in the Toronto Star in one day. If you want to share information and raise awareness about an issue, you need to go door to door. You need to get that word out. The regulator said that there was not adequate information provided to the community. There wasn't, that wasn't shared. And yet that license was renewed. So, we are happy that this conversation is happening now, but it's unfortunate it's taken this long. And we need to do better. There's a bigger conversation around energy in this province. You know, I'm proud to be with a party that stands firmly against new nuclear investments, building new nuclear plants. We know that it's unsafe, you know, for communities in the long run, and we know that it's actually expensive too, that we could do much better in terms of investing in green technology and alternative energies, and that it would put people to work in this province too, and that's what we've committed to do. Anyway, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that I want to hear from tonight, and going forward, please get in touch with our office if you have any questions at all, if there's anything we can do to help, okay? And Sherry DeNovo, my colleague from Queen's Park.
I just wanted to say those papers that are making their way back are note paper. It's scrap paper for you to write your questions on, and then leave them for us at the end of the night.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonah. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I'll be pretty clear. As the Member of Provincial Parliament for Parkdale High Park, I've received phone calls, and I, like everyone, or most people here, didn't know this facility existed. I'm absolutely appalled and horrified that it exists. There is no level of nuclear radiation that is safe. Period. End of story. Also, there is no such thing as safe storage of the nuclear pipeline. None. Nowhere. And I'll also say that I stand as a New Democrat with a proud history of our party as being firmly anti-nuclear. I will stand on that basis. No money into nuclear. No dollars into nuclear. Yes, we need to put money into energy. Yes, we need to put money into retrofit, but we don't need to put money into nuclear. So that's our stand. That's what our energy critic has spoken loud and proud about. And again, if there's anybody from Parkdale High Park here, please keep in touch with my office. I also have to leave this evening early, but have a rousing meeting and shut it down.
Thank you, Sherry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to thank you all for attending this meeting. First and foremost, I want to be very clear that the City of Toronto does not regulate or license these kind of operations. We have to be very clear on that. These kind of operations are regulated by the federal government. Now, what we need to know is, and one thing that I know in terms of the level of contamination that we had in the past, is that in 1981, when the General Electric decided to shut down the operation, they left a massive amount of PCBs and other contaminants in the empty buildings and in all the lands and the surroundings. It took more than 20 years of hard work, dedication, vision and leadership, my friends, to make sure that we took at least the first step in terms of cleaning up those lands. And only it happened about 8 years ago, as soon as I became elected, I was able, by working with community leaders, by working with all the stakeholders, to make sure that these lands were clean from all the contaminants. As a result, what we have now is a beautiful, vibrant community there that I'm extremely proud of. It's a great community that has become the jewel in the West End. And that's the kind of thing that we were waiting for many, many years. This is an area that it was an eyesore, it was a garbage dumping in terms of the contamination. That was the real concern for the community as a whole. How do we deal with this contamination problem? And that's where, by working with the community, by working together, by putting politics aside, by taking a collective approach, we were able to do exactly what we were set to do, to clean it up, that community. And here we have, as I said before, a jewel of a community. What needs to be done now? I think what this community needs is a level of transparency to begin with, from the General Electric and also from these federal agencies. They have to be more transparent. they have to engage our communities with factual information. And that's what we need, factual information, information that deals with the issues. This is a community that's striving and looking great. And to somehow, even though in the good spirit of what we are trying to do, it's not fair for the community to be stigmatized. One thing that I would like to tell you is that as a city councilor for the area, I have listened to what the community had to say. Yes, I did go to a tour that was invited together with the local MPP and the MP for the area. And the reason of going there was to learn what's happening there, firsthand. And that was great, because that's my responsibility as city councilor to know what's happening there so I can inform you. And one thing that I learned when I asked every question is, I wanted to have this public information disclosure forum in terms of who gets the information from these agents. And to my surprise, believe it or not, as a city council for the last 8 years, my name was not there, and instead we had former councilor Adam Jambroni, that he's in the list, and this list went to the MPP and to the MP as well. So it's a public document. How can I know what was happening there? From that perspective, I will bring a notice of motion to City Council that will reflect all the concerns that you have and how we can improve the community. I will bring forward the petition that was submitted to my office, and I'll be very proud to represent this community and make every effort to continue with the community revitalization that's taking place in this community. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's incredible political representation. I'm so glad we have so much interest from all 3 levels of government. Thank you all for coming. Okay, there are a dozen seats peppered throughout. Can you put your hand up if you have an empty seat? I really want to encourage you folks at the back that are standing, come grab one of these seats. Stick your hand up, please. Dick, stick your hand up, please.
There's 2 seats right there.
Do you have an empty seat there? Yes, please grab the seats, everybody, so that more people can come in when you create space. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. Okay, let us begin the night of our expert speakers who have come from far away to educate us all about what's going on at the plant. Our first speaker is Zach No Chemical Rooter.
Can I get an Earth-alleluia? Earth-alleluia. One more, I didn't hear it. Earth-alleluia.
Earth-alleluia.
Praise be.
Contrary to media reports that Zach is an outside infiltrator from the United States, a professional activist, he's actually from this neighborhood. He grew up and went to school at Hawthorne's Second Bilingual Alternative School. He went there for 8 years. It's just 2 kilometers from here. And he now lives just in central Toronto, up near Eglinton and Spadina. He bit his teeth in the nuclear issue while a student at Trent University in Peterborough. There he worked with other students to take on GE's sister plant in Peterborough. They won to some degree, at least. Zach was, and you'll hear more about that tonight. Zach was the first to raise awareness of the issue of this plant in this neighborhood. So we all have him to thank for us being here. And tonight, Zach will provide for us the overall context of GE-Hitachi's plant in this hood, what it's doing there. Thanks, Zach.
Okay, so they did the same thing in Peterborough as well. It was actually Matthew Langibbard was the first student at Trent University to just be randomly surfing a website, and I don't know how he found this page that said that the CNSC, or sorry, it was Amanda. This is
Both of us.
Amanda and Matt here. So they were, and then they found out that the CNSC had granted permission to Peterborough GE to work with low-enriched uranium fuel rods. And low-enriched uranium is a euphemism for enriched uranium, just like natural uranium here is a euphemism for the uranium that will be burnt in the reactors and then will become radioactive waste for billions of years. So when we actually found out that they were having their 10-year license renewal, that's when we snapped into action. So they had approved this when no one had showed up to the commission hearing. So they had actually approved it with not a single person mentioning any problem. But it was only when we came there with Roy, our elder from the Council of Canadians and Safe and Green Energy of Peterborough, with Amanda Lickers and Matthew Lane Gibbard and others, that we said, you know, we can't see that you've consulted the public at all. And we actually had a groundswell of about 50 parents who wrote letters of intervention after the deadline to say that they were never informed. And they lived right across the street. So this is a pattern that GE has been doing in terms of keeping people in the dark. They've known about it, they've been notified about it, but it's only because we caught them that the regulator kind of tried to sort of do a rhetorical punishment of them. But we did have their license to produce low-enriched uranium right across the street from where the Prince of Wales school community has their playground, where there's a beryllium stack. So we had that revoked, and that was a win. I'll just quickly say that Mr. Cash talked about this space, so I'm going to talk about this space. The last time I was here was because Angela had met someone named Sonomi from Japan who was here with her 2 daughters. One was in the womb when Fukushima happened, and the other one was 1 year old. And she was here as a mother fleeing the radiation in Japan, the irradiated food, the water, and the air. So there were some people from Japan who came over afterwards, but they were then denied refugee status and they were sent back to Japan. So I know that Mr. Cash is celebrating the citizenship of new people, but I would love to one day to welcome Sonomi and other mothers and their young daughters from Japan to come to Canada because it's safer from the radiation. You can only get a visa for so long, so by the time Angela met her here, because Angela was taking care of someone else's kid that day and picked the kid up at the daycare, she met her here, and this was a community place that she was able to use, and the community care to, she was taking care of 2 young daughters who were under the age of 2.5, so this community here came together for her with the services here by not asking for, proof of citizenship, and by really helping her out so she could have some time to just do things that she had to for herself. So, focus on the plant. I'm almost out of time. Okay, well I'm going to be, okay, so according to Mr. Paul Desiri, accidents at this plant are not credible. So they don't consider them as a possibility of happening. We know that's not true because in 1999, they had a fire up their stack. We don't know what their emergency plans are. I'd like to tell you what happened within the last week. Within the last week, on Sunday, the Fitzpatrick Nuclear Station, which is on the south side of Lake Ontario. So it's just because it's in the States doesn't mean that it's not a concern. It's a boiling water General Electric reactor, the same design as the Fukushima reactors and the same design as 23 of the nuclear reactors in the United States. And they're past their lifespan, and it had a fire, and they haven't been able to explain. Because they're GE. GE manufactured Fukushima, they manufactured Fitzpatrick. It's commonly known, this is a General Electric boiling water reactor. You can find that out, this is their technology. They manufactured it, and they're avoiding liability in Japan or anywhere else. So that was on Sunday. So what I'm saying is accidents happen. There was also, this past week, 2 major industrial explosions in Quebec, and they had nothing to do with uranium, nothing at all. But the thing is that accidents happen. So I'm going to go over there really quickly and just read you the quote from Mr. Desiri that says that it's not credible. He doesn't consider it credible, but we do know if there's an explosion, like there were in Quebec, And that happened in a place with quote-unquote natural uranium that would spread all over the city and contaminate that city with that radiation forever, because uranium is radioactive for 4.5 million years. So I'm just going to go over there and read that quote very quickly.
Okay, yeah, got a minute left.
Okay, I've got a minute. Okay. So this is what he said. For the record, Paul Desiri, that's correct. In the case of uranium, the possibility of high excursions is not credible. So even with a large spill, you wouldn't expect a spike in either external gamma fields or external beta fields. This is nuke speak. So I'll just quickly, so basically, it isn't just about this community. It is about this community, but it can't be about this community to the exclusion of anyone else in the nuclear fuel cycle. So we've got people here today from where the uranium will go to in Peterborough, but we also importantly have someone here today from where the refining of that happens. And he's going to speak for just 1 minute or 2 minutes. This is Derek Kelly, the president of Families Against Radiation Exposure in Port Hope. Yesterday, Palazzo's representative and Jonah asked, theoretically, if this were took place to be shut down, could it not maybe be included back into where it has in Port Hope, or could this operation move into Peterborough? I'll just let you take off from there. Thank you for letting me speak.
The answer to that, Zach, would be that if your plant here was to shut down, would it come to Port Hope? Well, if it was, we'd fight to keep it out. That would be our problem, not yours. Your problem is what you've got here now. It was Sherry DeNovo that was up here a few moments ago, and she said nuclear is not safe. And that's absolutely true. The radiobiological science, the established science, categorically states there is no safe level of exposure to ionizing radiation, and you need to be aware of that. And when they talk about the fuel pellet, that probably a lot of what they're saying is true. That's not the bad guy. The bad guys are the stuff that comes from Port Hope, the uranium dioxide, the UO2, that makes the pellet. It's a powder, and there's fugitive emissions that would come from that plant. And chances are that you're probably never going to get a uranium particulate in your lung, but you never know. It could, and there is no safe level of exposure. The exposures that GE and other experts in the nuclear industry talk about to make you all feel good is gamma, and gamma is probably the least of the concern. It's the uranium particulate that could get lodged in your lung or your gut, and that becomes an internal exposure, internal emitter, that it's similar to having a coal outside of your body and inhaling a coal into your body. Outside your body, that coal's probably keeping you warm if it's lit. Inside your body, it's going to burn, and that's what happens with the uranium particulate. So that's your concern with the plant down here, the GE-Hitachi plant. Don't let them tell you otherwise, because there are fugitive emissions. And a cancer might be caused from that maybe 50 years down the road after an exposure. You're never going to know. The bottom line is a plant like that doesn't belong in a community like yours. GE is a corporation. Corporations have one goal, and that's to make profit. You're a community. Your goal is to come together to make sure that whatever happens in your community is safe. And remember, safe means without harm, without risk. And you do have that in your community. That's all I'll say. Other than, Zach, you're doing a great job, and you've hit a real sore spot, I can tell you, because I've been monitoring it, and the nuclear PR people are out trying to discredit you big time, so you're doing a good thing.
Thank you so much. There's still a half a dozen chairs here. If you want to stick your hand up, there's a whole bunch of chairs. Come on up forward. There's 4 over here, 1 here. Could people clear the space beside them? You're all standing. Come on out. You want to stand? Okay. Did those handouts make their way through the audience, by the way? Did everybody get one of these health impacts of the plant?
If they didn't get it, it's here.
Could you circulate those? Because I know nobody up here got them. We're going to be doing questions after all the speakers. Sorry, I know a bunch of people have questions, but we're going to have to come back to them. Okay, our next speaker is Simon Paul Dene. Simon Paul Dene served as Justice Councillor with Aboriginal Legal Services of Toronto, hailing from Saskatchewan, where Cameco and Areva produce 40% of the world's uranium exports. Simon Paul Dene was pressured to leave Saskatchewan after questioning the practice of mining uranium. Simon Paul Dene is a traditional Dene from the English River First Nation and is a survivor of the Indian residential school system, yet he continues to speak his Dene language. Tonight he will address the hazards of uranium mining to give us a sense of the whole nuclear fuel chain. Thank you, Simon Paul Dene.
Thank you very much for welcoming me. I've come a long way. I hail from northern Saskatchewan, where there are presently 12 uranium mines in operation. What we are going through right now is only a chain of events that has also fell upon our people. 1975, we begin to notice in northern Saskatchewan that the provincial government was slowly moving in up north. We started to notice all the trailer courts that were moving into the spaces. And gradually they were telling us that they're going to dig uranium out of the ground. Our elders were very concerned about that because of the legend that have been passed on to us for legends for centuries and centuries. And it goes that Grandma was walking along with a young daughter, and Grandma sat down on a rock to rest. And she sat down, she began to cry. She looked at that rock and she pushed it down into the ground and cried and cried. And she looked at the young little girl and she says to the young girl, "Please tell the children never ever to bring this rock up again." We call it the black stone. In Dene Sunghtine, we call it Thur del Zen, or black blood. What we have been going through is two dimensions. It's called violence, and through accommodation that has been going on and on. Our people in northern Saskatchewan are coming down with cancers. I've recently lost one of my sisters. I've recently lost one of my brothers. And this is very heartening for us. Now they want to put in a nuclear waste dump up in northern Saskatchewan, in the pristine land of northern Saskatchewan. And there is underground water flowing from Cree Lake, Saskatchewan, where there is a hole, and it flows underground all the way to Saskatchewan to Lac La Planche in Beauval, Saskatchewan. Recently, some doctors came to visit northern Saskatchewan, and we thank them, Dr. Haldicott and Dr. Dale Dewar. So it is the woman that is coming down to us, to every one of us. It takes a woman to come down and lead us the way. So we do not actually have to have leaders in this time and age, because we all have to stand up ourselves, and we are our own leaders. And you have to understand that. Some of my people are imprisoned because of standing up against uranium mining in northern Saskatchewan. The prominent one that I know, that I work with in northern Saskatchewan, is presently in jail. He has been railroaded for aiding and abetting in the murder of one of our people, Anime Akwash. So it went through courts, and what we observe is that he had been truly railroaded. All the evidence were just hearsay evidence. And then we have another person. His name is Leonard Peltier. And when a shootout happened in South Dakota in 1975, it was at the time then Peltier and them fought back. And then Peltier fled back to Canada, from which he was extradited. And currently, right now, he is sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. At the same time that this happened, in June 26, 1975, uranium was discovered in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And for that, the late chief, Frank Foolscrow, did not appreciate what was happening there. And that is what is happening right now, that Pine House is really in poverty. And there yet they still have uranium. Up north in Saskatchewan, jobs is 4 most expensive letters in the English words that we understand. Thank you very much.
Let's give some perspective. There is also a film called Uranium that is available online. If you Google it and look it up, you can download it. It's produced by the NFB, I think around 1990. And it gives the whole nuclear fuel, the uranium chain, and it talks about mining and milling and the impact on First Nations people. So please watch that. It's a great NFB film. Thank you. Okay, our next speaker, Amanda Lickers. Amanda is from Peterborough. She has studied environmental chemistry at Trent University and has presented in public tribunal hearings regarding GE-Hitachi Canada and the proposed expansion of the Darlington Nuclear Generating Station. Amanda's research background is in radiobiology and the cellular and long-term ecological effects of long-term, low-level, low-dose radiation exposure. Amanda will speak to us today about the long-term effects of low-dose radiation exposure. Thanks, Amanda.
I just want to first say hi to you, Susan, for sharing with us and for your words and your spirit. I really
pick it up. Just grab it.
Okay.
She's using her computer, that's the problem.
Well, basically, I have a lot of information for you people, so I have to consult notes. There's a slideshow that might make it easier, but it's not really. I'm gonna try to make it as consumable as possible. Anyway, I guess there are a few things I quickly just wanted to say. And that, like, I agree with what has already been stated, that working with the community and a collective approach is really important to, like, resisting multinational corporations and their effects on your lives and community and the environment. But relying on talking heads and public representatives to do anything is totally naive. And, like, if they were doing their jobs, this wouldn't be a surprise to anyone in this room today. So. So I don't think this conversation should be scapegoated about who to vote for. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is what is a radionuclide. So like a radionuclide is a radioactive isotope, which means that it has an unstable nucleus and there's like a lot of energy happening in this isotope. And so radionuclides or radioactive isotopes are constantly undergoing a process of radioactive decay, which results in the emission of gamma rays and or subatomic particles like alpha or beta particles. And this creates something known as ionizing radiation. This is a type of radiation that's so powerful that it can like actually shake loose electrons and possibly even a nucleus from an atom or molecule. And it's emitted from atoms and absorbed by atoms. So a lot of this, when people talk about radioactivity and like uranium, it gets like sort of like really confusing because it's like it's on a cellular level what's happening, and it's very abstract in some ways. I also want to note that radionuclides are non-metabolic, which like what that means is that radionuclides or radioactive isotopes don't actually get processed through your physiology, and so there's a process of, it's called biological amplification. So the more that you're exposed, so even if it's a very minute amount of exposure to uranium, so like uranium dust particles that get emitted into the atmosphere from the stacks of the GE plant, or when they put the wash water into the local sewer system, because that's what they do. That's what they do in Peterborough. That's what they do in every facility, is they have it recycled into the city water supply. And so so the contamination is like thorough and imminent. And so if you're drinking the water or breathing the air or eating food that's grown locally, then there's a high chance that there's some radiation contamination. And so even if you're taking in small amounts of this over a period of time, the actual amount of radiation in your body and exposure to radionuclides is increased and compounded. So it's not like something like alcohol, like you drink alcohol and over a period of hours, your metabolism processes it, and then there are byproducts and you're hungover, and then you drink some water and you're okay. This is something that stays in your system for a long term, and it also has like cellular effects on the cellular level. It actually has like mutagenic effects on your DNA, but I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So that's a little bit about radionuclides, which is what makes something radioactive. And non-ionizing radiation is really, very powerful. It actually only naturally occurs outside of the ways in which corporations and humanity have, and like the colonial capitalist complex have refined uranium to be able to be non-ionizing. It only naturally occurs on non-ionizing radiation in a supernova. So, I mean, that's pretty severe. And if you don't believe me, you can like look it up. You can ask NASA. It's true. That is legitimate. Anyway, and also if people want some resources and stuff towards the end, I can like refer people to some literature. But I would like to suggest that people try to educate themselves and like undergo their own research. Like there's so much peer-reviewed like articles now out there, like even from like as early as 2004, where we know about this stuff and it's been uncovered. So there's a lot of information out there. People just have to look for it. So okay. The next thing I want to talk about is that the cellular response to low-dose radiation exposure is really variant, and so there's a lot of uncertainties associated with evaluating potential hazards at incredibly low doses. And I want to echo what you were saying from Thur, that it is true there is no safe level of exposure, none at all. So one of the main issues would be something that's considered non-targeted effects, which are associated with low-dose exposure. What this means is that a cell that's not directly irradiated can exhibit a number of different effects. For example, the bystander effect, which is observed in cells that were not irradiated but were either in contact with or received soluble signals from irradiated cells. So because your body's an organism, all of your cells, like in your skin, they communicate to each other and like they send signals to each other. And so if one like cell gets contaminated and is irradiated, and then the impact of that on one cell can actually impact other cells in your body that haven't even been exposed, because your body is an interconnected organism and cells communicate to each other. So I hope that makes sense. Sorry. non-contact. So yeah, so these bystander cells that were not in direct contact with a radionuclide or who have not been directly contaminated, they exhibit damage that's typical to that of direct radiation exposure. There's also another effect called the death-inducing effect. Actually, that's a scientific term. Anyway, so what it does is the death-inducing effect severely reduces the survival rate of non-radiated cells. So what would be conceived of as healthy cells because of the radiation-induced chromosomal instability. Because, like I said, cells, they communicate to each other, and so when they are radiated, it causes the chromosome to not be able to reproduce itself, because you have cells that die and they have progeny, so cells are constantly reproducing and constantly you're generating new cells in your body all the time. So when you're exposed to radiation, even in small doses, even cells that haven't been exposed to radiation can have majorly impactful interruptions, yeah, thank you. Interruptions on their chromosomal stability, and so when they go to reproduce and try to create the next liver cell, they get confused and their DNA doesn't necessarily reproduce properly, and then what that does is that gives way to free radicals, and it also gives way to also genetic mutations. So these are all ways in which it's not good for you. Just in case that wasn't clear, it's not a good thing. Okay, so yeah, like I said, chromosomal stability is the cell's ability to reproduce itself in a healthy way. And when you have chromosomal instability, there's a very strong factor contributing to the proliferation of cancer cells, because the chromosomes can't communicate to the cell properly, resulting in free radicals and genetic mutation. And this is what we call radiation-induced genome instability. And this is a delayed induction of large-scale chromosomal changes. So, like I said, it doesn't allow for chromosomes to reproduce properly, and it can affect the reproduction and overall health of a cell, again, leading towards cancer, development of cancer cells, as well as transgenerational responses, which I'm going to get into that a little bit more in a few moments. Okay, and so this point is really important because it also affects future generations of children. Because it's a transgenerational effect. So as your cell becomes inhibited to successfully reproduce its DNA, as time goes on, when you actually go to reproduce, the genetic memory of your cell gets skewed, and there's a higher likelihood for birth defects in children. And so there's a lot of studies that have been released post-Chernobyl that examine low-dose radiation exposure, like long-term exposure to mothers whose children are in the womb at the time, or who even years and years later got pregnant after a lot of the main fallout had passed, and ways in which they face developmental disabilities, and all kinds of other things. So yeah. Sorry. So it is important to stress that not only is the production of the waste and the direct contamination a major concern for people who inhabit the earth, but it becomes a generational and a genetic issue. Mutation induction, and so transgenerational response is a mutation induction by ionizing radiation. So it's where ionizing radiation causes the induction, the inclusion of mutation in the cell reproductive system. And so by exposure to ionizing radiation, the cell starts to normalize mutations, and then it no longer is able to perform its function, which is a huge problem for the organism overall, because if your cells don't know how to reproduce, and if they're not reproducing in a healthy way, and like I said, you lead to cancer and other kinds of health concerns. So those are some main points. I know I went really quickly, and it probably sounded like a lot of jargon, so I'm sorry for that. I hope I tried to break it down a little bit. But so I can't really stress enough how the impacts are on a cellular level, but that's also in terms of like an entire organism, which is also in terms of an entire community, because it's something that is intergenerational and is not just about your cell's ability to reproduce in a healthy way, and the ways in which exposure to radiation, exposure to radionuclides, and severely compromises this, but how this also compromises future generations. And so like when we have a facility like General Electric, who have been in Toronto for 50 years, and they've been in Peterborough for 100 years, it's incredibly problematic. And so there is an amount of responsibility that falls firstly on the corporation, also on the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, as well as the City of Toronto, because it's not like the city didn't know that there was a GE plant here. You know, it's not like it was a surprise in that way. And so there should have been safeguards to prevent a residential area from springing up in like what was a former industrial zone and what is like a radiation contaminated area. And so these things are very important to consider. I would definitely encourage people to find ways to work together in their community to try to put pressure on the corporation to shut down, because they're making big money off of this. And just like for the record, the LEU also was in Toronto, and it was the GE-Hitachi Canada's whole LEU license that was rescinded because they didn't do a proper public consultation. This is the matter of course that they undergo. They don't really care about the effects on residents because it doesn't come to light until years and years later after class action lawsuits and a whole bunch of research. So I would suggest that you try to get as educated as you can and work within your community to try to develop strategies that are diverse and look to make General Electric very uncomfortable, put lots of pressure on the city and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to respect your rights to like a safe and like healthy environment to live in.
Awesome. Is this on? Does this one have to? On those handouts that were distributed, there's a bunch of references at the end that are really good references for you to follow up with. So if you didn't get one, they should still be circulating around the room. Is there a stack somewhere hanging around? Some people here didn't get one. You want to, yeah, thanks. Stick your hand up if you don't have one. Pardon? Okay, well, great. And if you have to leave early, if you sign up on our email list, we'll continue to send you more information, background research. So stay in touch through that email list. Don't leave without signing up. I'm sorry, we got to do questions after. Okay, next speaker is Roy Brayton. Roy is a longtime committed community organizer. He's currently active with the Council of Canadians, the Peterborough and Ontario Health Coalitions, and Safe and Green Energy Peterborough. He was also a critical player in the Shield Source Inc. tritium battle in Peterborough, and he was an intervener at the GE-Hitachi's license hearing in Ottawa 2010, where GE got its licensing extended but was explicitly not allowed to possess or use low-enriched uranium at its site. Roy will address GE's record of public consultation.
I need that. Thank you to the can you hear that? Thank you to the organizers and the health center.
Stick it right up to your mouth.
Right up to my mouth. Okay. Just a quick comparison between Peterborough and Toronto. In Peterborough, the General Electric is the largest industrial employer. At one time, they employed 6,000 people. So it's not on.
No, it's on. It's already on. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. They're pretty well unnatural in the community, unfortunately, because of the employment they provided. And we're kind of in a corner of the nuclear region, which begins at Pickering and in Darlington, and then through Comico and Port Hope, and then up to General Electric in Peterborough. However, two things are common, but I also should mention that GE Toronto is not a major economic player. They should be very vulnerable to a serious challenge. So good luck on that one. However, two things are very common here. The licensing 2 years ago was extension for both Peterborough and Toronto plants. However, and also, what is common is the lack of public consultation in either spot. We went through it, and that's what I'm here to give you tonight. General Electric will deny. They will deny everything. They will consider everything as safe and manageable. We had the light-enriched uranium crisis, actually, in Peterborough, because this was going to be material from North Carolina transported to Peterborough, and this material becomes radioactive in the manufacturing process. And this would be in a residential area with a school less than 100 meters away. I mean, it was shocking. More shocking, it was approved in February 2010 in the first of 2 hearings. Outrage, finally, when the word got around, and it took several months for it to get to me, what was happening, then a neighborhood meeting was finally held. None of this information came from General Electric. Students actually had to go find it, and hardly anybody knew. So 9 days before the hearing, they hold a neighborhood meeting, mainly because of the outrage from parents in this particular neighborhood school. Following that meeting, there were 50 written, around that meeting, there were 50 written submissions sent in, and 6 oral presentations at the hearing in December 2010. 4 of those 6 people are in this room tonight. Okay, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and I'll bring them back in later on, they defended General Electric's public consultation, which is appalling to me because I presented the exact opposite at the hearing, that there was hardly any, there wasn't any public consultation, unless it was forced from them. General Electric made statements like the following: not have anything to say. Not heard any concern in the public until very recently. Well, of course not. They never said anything. Nobody knew anything. A copy was sent to the library. We have no idea where that went. This is the consultation, by the way. A single ad in the Toronto Star and Peterborough Examiner that year. I subscribed to both of them. I did not see it. They sent correspondence to reserves, First Nations reserves, where they told you how to participate in the hearing, but not about what the issue was all about. They also said they sent newsletters out 2 consecutive years to the neighbors. And speaking with the neighbors and meeting with the neighbors, we haven't found anybody who received them. So serious problems here. Serious problems with the truth also. It seems that when General Electric does touch the public, it's always at the last minute. You had available to you a tour yesterday, the day before this impressive public consultation by ourselves. Also, the meeting that was held in Peterborough 9 days before the hearing in Ottawa, and they never had any consultation before that. We feel that GE does not want people to know. We also feel that it is their responsibility to inform us, responsibility because of regulation, because of morality, because it's in the community, and they operate there. And the CEO made this following statement: it's only when we have something to say. Well, apparently they don't have anything to say in Toronto either. Now, I'll just wait 2 minutes. Okay. Now, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, we can't rely on them. They support General Electric. They support the nuclear industry. This is the role they have assumed. They approved the use of light-enriched uranium in Peterborough. That's radioactivity, okay, at the first hearing. There were 2 hearings. General Electric, in the first place, applied for the use of this dangerous material. Is that being safe? Is that being good for the community? We can't depend on this particular safety regulator. One presenter, interesting enough, at the hearing, did some research, and he researched the following areas: harm to workers, because there was the presence and spreading of asbestos in the plant; PCB contamination in the area in the 80s and 90s. He found out that there had been the following: a fire, a broken water main, a worker evacuation, the parking lot sprayed with solvents, waste removals. None of this came from General Electric itself. We had to find it. Well, your community has children, it has health concerns, you've got the grounds in the area there you have to watch out. There are nuclear-related transfers all over the place, from Comico and Port Hope to Toronto, from Toronto to Peterborough, going through your city, through your neighborhood. So let me conclude from with some advice from the lessons we had learned 2 years ago in Peterborough. 5 points. It's going to be the community that's going to do this struggle. Your allies have not been the officials who do know what's going on, and they haven't been the politicians who strangely don't know what's going on, but they're now finding out. Secondly, do research the past operations and incidents at this place. Go find out what has happened that General Electric has not told you about. It might be amazing what you find out. Third, demand public information. General Electric does not intend to inform you, and hasn't. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission is an isolated body in Ottawa. They're pro-nuclear, and they just lead a very comfortable process for them. Historically, we have learned we cannot rely on General Electric. It will be you people. You'll have to do it. So, the fourth one is get your politicians working. You heard some encouraging words today. Keep them on the case. They have other things to do. Keep them on this file. Call them tomorrow. Call them next week. Make them work for you. They might pull some miracles for you. And lastly, stick to it. Don't give up. Please remember, safety is not short term. Safety is forever. So, good luck. Council Canadians and SAYS are with you. Good luck.
Thank you. Next speaker, Kira Bell-Pasht. Kira is a lawyer at the Canadian Environmental Law Association, otherwise known as CELA, a nonprofit public interest organization founded in 1970. CELA is an environmental law clinic with Legal Aid Ontario, dedicated to providing legal services to low-income individuals and disadvantaged communities, and advancing the cause of strong environmental protection through advocacy, education, and law reform. Kira will address the environmental regulations relevant to the GE plant.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Now, I know when you hear the word legal, you get nervous. It might be a little boring, so I hope I won't be too boring. I'll be very fast.
Eat the mic.
I will eat the mic, which is disgusting. I'm just getting over a cold myself. So, will you be pressing the buttons? Okay, press the button. So, I have to give this caution before I start. CELA hasn't been retained to act for any party in relation to anything to do with the GE-Hitachi uranium processing plant. I'm here just to provide legal information, and I can't provide legal advice. It's sometimes difficult to distinguish the difference between those two, but I will do my best. And you've already heard the description about us, but I should just also let you know that CELA provides legal representation and assistance to low-income members of Ontario, Ontarians. We also aim to provide legal information to the general public if we have time, which often we don't, but we do our best. And you can find out more information about our application process and how to contact us on our website, which is www.cela.ca. Okay, so CELA has a long history of involvement in energy-related cases and energy-related law reform efforts, including nuclear power regulation, which I will discuss at the end of my presentation. But my comments today are general in nature and not specific to this plant. I will be doing my best to briefly outline the regulation of radioactive and toxic emissions into the environment, and to what extent those laws, those regulations, allow for public participation in decision-making processes and the public's right to know. Please click. So as we've heard tonight, the federal government is responsible, through the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, for regulating nuclear power and related activities. Both the processing and transportation of uranium are regulated by the CNSC. Trucks coming into the facility, trucks leaving the facility, and everything that happens inside the facility. So when applying for license renewals, which as you heard happened in 2010 at this particular facility, an applicant is required to give notice to surrounding community members. The public can then request permission to speak or to make written submissions to the commission at those public hearings, and transcripts from hearings and CNSC licensing decisions are also available online on the CNSC website, which I have on one of these slides. Don't press though, not yet. So licenses are granted if the applicant has adequate provisions for the protection of the environment, the health and safety of persons, and the maintenance of national security. So complying with these conditions requires annual monitoring, reporting, inspections, emergency plans, site decommissioning plans, and there's also penalties, financial penalties and offenses that are related to all of those requirements, to some of them at least. So audits are undertaken internally and externally. That's important to know. So by external auditors that are coming into the plant, and that's happening annually, to make sure that the facility is keeping up with the standards and its license conditions. Annual compliance reports. So GE-Hitachi's plant has to produce annual compliance reports. They are available to the public upon request. These compliance reports talk about how they've met their environmental requirements, their environmental safety and health requirements. Now, any member of the public can go into the facility in regular working hours and request this annual compliance report. It's also available online on the GE-Hitachi Toronto website, which I have up here. So you might want to have a browse through that. So compliance reports outline, amongst other things, annual emissions to the environment of uranium, as well as workplace exposures to radiation, uranium. And just so you know, the federal regulated annual discharge limit is 760 grams. And if you go through the compliance report, you can see how much they've actually emitted for yourselves and how it compares to that limit. So renewals are normally granted if the license applicant has complied with its license conditions and they've satisfied legislation requirements, regulations, and guidelines to the satisfaction of the regulator. Copies of licenses, as well as the conditions associated with those licenses, are also available to the public upon request by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Don't worry, we're getting through the heavy stuff now. Moving along, next slide. So I've mentioned this. The facility also needs to regulate the transportation. So the uranium coming into the plant and leaving the plant, going through perhaps your neighborhoods. Every movement is subject to regulations, which they must satisfy, and in order to continue doing it. We'll move on to the next slide. So radiation exposure to the public and to workers. They're outlined in... Go to the next one. There you go. And skip to the next one. Sorry. Yes, here we go. So, radiation exposure. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission requires that licensees ensure that the dose of radiation received by their workers and the public is as low as reasonably achievable. Taking economic and social considerations into effect. So the specified current annual limit on public radiation exposure from nuclear operations is 1 millisievert. That's a number which means the rate at which radiation is absorbed by the body. And I can't speak more about that, but perhaps the scientist on the panel might be able to help you. I do understand, though, that the GE-Hitachi license includes limits that are much lower than this regulated limit. And since their license was renewed, the presumption is that they've met that standard in their license. All right, I've got 2 minutes left, so I'll skip to the, let me quickly speak to this. So there is another element that needs to be considered. Even though the federal government is dealing with radioactive activities, the provincial government, the Ministry of the Environment, regulates facilities that emit pollutants into the environment. So the GE-Hitachi plant in this neighborhood also is subject to a certificate of approval. You need to get one of those if you will be emitting pollutants into the environment. Now, that's another way, every time that facility applies for a certificate of approval, it's posted on the environmental registry, and it's posted for the public to review and to comment on that certificate of approval to emit whatever pollutants they will be emitting. And there's also a right to appeal a decision made on a certificate of approval, perhaps to grant one. You can appeal it if you have an interest. If it's determined you have an interest, you can appeal it to the Environmental Review Tribunal. And in 2016, a new air quality standard for uranium and uranium compounds will come into effect in Ontario, at which point the GE-Hitachi plant will also need to be meeting those standards. And those standards are in relation to general toxicity, not specifically radioactive toxicity. That's important to know. They can be two different things, but because I'm not a scientist, I can't get into that. And I've got 1 minute left, but that's good. That's good, because I'm getting to the best minute of the presentation. Next slide, please. This is the story section of the presentation. Next slide. That was the EBR. Actually, there was an EBR website that I just posted up there. The EBR is the Environmental Registry. It's important for everybody in the community to know that they can access and review environmental decisions of the Ministry of Ontario and have their say. It's something that a lot of people aren't aware of, and they should. It's a way to participate in decision making. Okay, so CELA's experience. CELA has had a lot of experience in similar issues. And that's because our mandate, or two of our mandates, include supporting public participation in environmental decision making and the use of safe and sustainable energy. So our experience with the regulation of nuclear activities in Ontario and Canada more generally, it's extensive. It includes representing clients before the the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission in regards to radioactive tritium processing facilities, the Darlington nuclear reactor refurbishments, the proposed new nuclear reactors at the Darlington plant. We've also undertaken judicial reviews of environmental assessments of nuclear waste transportation licenses and proposals for new nuclear reactors. And we've undertaken numerous law reform efforts relating to nuclear issues, such as the tritium standards for drinking water and uranium air emission standards. In 2010, CELA acted on behalf of a public interest group in a CNSC license renewal hearing for a radioactive tritium processing plant located in Pembroke, Ontario. The transcripts of the hearing, which are available again on the CNSC website, outline our arguments on behalf of our client, namely that the license should not be renewed because the activities undertaken at the facility represent unnecessary creation of hazardous waste, and because the applicant failed to meet the outdated and weak Canadian drinking water tritium guidelines. Notwithstanding our very strong arguments, the license was renewed, but at least the argument was made in the hearing. And more recently, CELA provided limited legal representation for a public interest organization in a case before the CNSC in regards to another license renewal. The license was in relation again to another tritium processing facility. And in this case, it had the information had become available that tritium had been released into the air at higher standards than were allowed in its license, and that as a result, we made representations to the CNSC, and the information resulted in the CNSC delaying the renewal hearing and repealing the facility's full operating license. These are just examples of ways to participate in the decision-making process in the CNSC hearings. So, moving on to the last slide, and it's a short one. All right, so just a couple of key points that I'd like you to take away from this presentation. The company has a duty to provide the public with its annual provincial emission and federal compliance reporting information. So it's got information it must submit to the Ministry of Ontario, the Ontario Ministry of Environment, as well as the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. And any member of the public has a right to access that. The public has a right to participate in certain environmental decision-making processes to which the facility is subject, such as when the company applies for a new provincial certificate of approval, or an amendment to a certificate of approval, or during license hearings before the CNSC. We'll move on to the last slide.
Kira, we're way over time.
Way over time. That's our website. You can check it out for more information, or you can contact us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Hey, I received some questions from the audience. I want to remind you to write all those questions down, and I'll walk around the audience and pick them up. But I wanted to read this one because I really liked it. Have there been any studies done that have shown higher levels of health problems linked to exposure to uranium? And I want to tell you where you can find the ultimate sort of meta-analysis of all the studies that have been done on issue of low-level dose radiation. All the studies that have been done. It's referenced on the handout that went around the room, the GE-Hitachi Toronto plant health myths. At the back, where it says for more information on health implications of uranium in the Hitachi plant, the last item there, Kathy Bakeel and Linda Harvey, the study is called Human Health Implications of Uranium Mining and Nuclear Power Generation. Go there, the link is there, and that's the best, very accessible overview of all the studies that have been done in Germany and Canada and elsewhere, the shortcomings, the strengths, etc. So I'll leave that there. Our last speaker, before we then get to more questions and strategize a bit, because we're really running out of time, but our last speaker is Heather Marshall. Heather works with the Toronto Environmental Alliance, otherwise known as T. She's the toxics campaigner. She monitors and promotes policy change at City Hall, such as the groundbreaking Community Right to Know bylaw. In her capacity as Good Neighbor Coordinator, she builds local community capacity in Toronto to encourage polluting companies to become good green neighbors. Prior to joining T, Heather worked in the health sector as researcher for Cancer Care Ontario and Health Canada. Heather will speak on toxins and the community's right to know.
Hi everyone. Being the last speaker, I feel very under pressure to keep you all entertained and not take up too much of your time. You've been very, very patient. Thank you for letting me come. I found out about this meeting through Zach, so thank you for letting me come. As Angela said, I'm from T, Toronto Environmental Alliance, and I just want to say I'm so impressed by the amount of people in this room tonight, because you are doing what so many other communities across the city of Toronto should be doing and aren't doing tonight, which is exercising a very, very important right, which is your community right to know. You have a right to know what you're being exposed to in your community. You have a right to know if there should be any security concerns related to emergencies. And you're exercising that right now, and you will continue to do that through the process of figuring out what to do about the GE plant in your neighborhood. So I commend you for coming out tonight and starting to ask those questions. It's a very, very important first step. So you should all applaud yourselves right now. take up too much time, I want to explain a few quick things. T finds out about places like this through one of two ways. The first is these registries online that the federal government runs, that the local government runs, the Nuclear Safety Commission runs, and it takes a lot of time and effort to go through those sites, sift through data, and find out what's going on in every neighborhood in the city of Toronto. It's impossible to sift through all that information. That's one way T tries to get information out to the public. The other is that people call our office and they let us know what's going on. The first call I got was actually from a reporter. That's how I found out. He was doing an investigative study to do the Now Magazine article. That was the first one that came out. So I was shocked as much as you are that this is going on in your neighborhood. A few important resources I want to leave you with is that Toronto is the first city in Canada to pass a community right to know bylaw. It means that we're going above and beyond what the federal government and provincial government require companies to report to our communities. It reports use and release of the top 25 toxic substances found in our air in Toronto. Unfortunately, uranium is not on that list. So there's clearly a lot of work we need to do. This is probably the only plant in the city of Toronto that's handling uranium, from what I know. So the community right to know bylaw is a very, very important first step, but it's not the last step. And so if you're questioning other facilities in your area or in your children's school or a retirement home that your family is part of, go to the City of Toronto's Chemtrack website and you can start to inquire, the same as you are with GE, about other facilities that are polluting across the City of Toronto. It's important to exercise that right. The second thing I want to say is that the federal government and the provincial government have been horrible at figuring out the cumulative health impacts to neighborhoods when not just one facility releases emissions, but 2 or 3 or 4. You add air pollution from trucks and cars onto that and highways. You look at tritium in our water. They are not working on this at the level they should be. And unfortunately, it's fallen on our shoulders to start asking those questions of our elected officials and the staff that work in government offices. So there is an opportunity, 2 opportunities I want to mention. One, the city has started to undergo local cumulative air impact studies. They've done one in South Riverdale, they're now in South Etobicoke, but they have a goal to do every community in the city. And they are looking at all those different sources I was talking about. That's a huge opportunity, and it's being done by the Toronto Environment Office. So remember them, because there's budget cuts coming, and that office may not exist anymore. Number 2, Toronto Public Health is an incredible asset. The medical officer of health has a power that they can undergo studies and enact bylaws if they can prove that there is a health concern in the city. So even though the city maybe hasn't done anything yet, there is an opportunity for them to still do something. And the other thing I should say, the last thing I'll leave you with, is that there are opportunities for public health to do studies around health clusters, things that might be related to other things going on in the community. So ask public health to look into it. It's worth a try. They're there to work for you. And so I hope some of these resources will be helpful. Again, the toronto.ca/chemtrack is the city's reporting system. It's a new one. Another is the T website.
Say it again.
Oh,
say it again.
Toronto.ca/chemtrack, CHEMTRAC. The other website I want to recommend is the T website, torontoenvironment.org, for 2 reasons. We try to stay up to date on these issues, and we have a Good Neighbor campaign link, which gives some resources on how do you do a Freedom of Information request to get more information from the Ministry of Environment. How do you look up the EBR registry? It takes a lot of effort, but we need citizen investigators in every community to start taking on this work. So I encourage you all to take a look at the resources that are available and start getting informed. And once again, thank you for taking this first step. It's an important one. Thank you very much.
So keep those questions coming. I'm going to read a whole bunch of them off and give all the speakers a chance to try to answer one or close. But we have one last speaker.
Can you know who's asking the question?
No, I don't have their names. We have one last speaker. John Withers is one of the initial parents who jumped onto this issue when she read about it in Now Magazine, and she'd like to address it briefly.
About who wrote the question, if people want to identify themselves when we make the question. Can we just ask a question out loud?
Wait, let her speak.
I have 20 questions here, and everybody in the audience has a question, and that's why all I can really do is ask you to write them down, and we will share them with all the politicians, with all of you if you leave us your email addresses. And we'll have future meetings. That's the most important thing. This is just the first of many meetings. Dawn?
Hi. First of all, I would just like to stop a second to thank the speakers that have come out, taken their time to come here and speak to us today. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of questions that we're going to have to ask. We're not here to give you all the answers. We're only here to start a dialogue and give you the opportunity to ask those questions yourself. You can do some research, you can keep in contact, and certainly go from there. We're all concerned that this facility was in our neighbourhood that we didn't know. A lot of us found out the same way through the media. A few of us may have known. I'm not sure. I've yet to speak to anyone or find out from anyone that knew about this before it came out just recently. So again, thank you very much for the speakers, and thank you for everyone for coming out. Hopefully we can go away from this, maybe not with all the answers of what we're going to do, but at least some more questions and know what questions we want to ask. Thank you very much.
Okay, so work with me here. We've got 8 minutes before we have to start closing up and packing up the room. I have about 30 questions here. We should just say that we knew when we set up the panel that there wouldn't be a whole lot of time for discussion. We think that this is the first of very many community meetings where we will be able to strategize. Like someone talked to me about setting up a petition. Someone else wrote a question about lawn signs. There are a million ideas like that we'll have to talk as a community in future meetings. So if you leave your email address, we will stay in touch with you, I promise. And we'll answer these questions to some degree in terms of technical. We can get the presenters to answer some of those questions. So we will stay connected. Also, as people are leaving, I want to mention that this meeting cost money. We're paying for speakers' transportation. There was a lot of photocopying. Luckily, we didn't have to pay for the room, but there are expenses, and we left a beautiful paper mache basket at the table where the sign-up sheets are. Please, if you could throw in a bill or some change to help us cover the cost of the event, we'd be very grateful. Plus, to move forward, we need money. Maybe set up a website, organizing future meetings. It all costs money. We want to bring in Dr. Gordon Edwards. That's going to cost money. So, let me read some of the questions, but also I'd like to acknowledge one last time the speakers on the panel. Zach No Chemical Rooter, Simon Paul Dene, Amanda Wickers, Heather Marshall, Roy Brady, and Kira Bell-Pasht. Okay, let's read some of these questions. I know, Tim, you have a million. Everybody has questions.
Let's get to it. We're all
Okay, let's do it.
We've got like 4 minutes left.
Okay, let me read some of the questions off. Geiger counter. How about Geiger counters in every household of the neighborhood?
Good, don't worry about it.
Can Geiger counters pick up this low-level radiation? Derek is saying no. Thank you for that answer.
Internal exposures you're worried about. Gamma you won't get you only get gamma from the Geiger counter.
Okay, internal exposures are the concern. Gamma isn't.
It's alpha you're worried about, and that's what the industry doesn't talk about. So keep that in mind.
Does the GE plant have to respect the city's environmental disclosure bylaw? Like, what about water bylaw?
I can quickly say that no, they don't have to report to the right to know bylaw because uranium dioxide is not one of the 25 substances that they have prioritized. And on the sewers bylaw, which is the wastewater that would be sent down the pipes and through to treatment plants in Lake Ontario, no, they don't have to report to that either because they report to the Nuclear Safety Commission and they are therefore absolved through that process to report to the city.
Can anybody answer a question about the wall of the plant buckling 1 to 2 years ago? Apparently it was braced for 12 weeks while the wall was repaired. Do you want to shout out an answer?
Well, no, I'd like to ask that question.
Okay, I asked it.
Well,
Thank you. We'll find out.
Find out what happened
Okay.
and how much closer we got.
We're going to circulate this information.
I was just looking at library archives. Like, we found a lot of stuff from like GE and Peterborough and their history from looking through like local library archives. There should be some records.
Okay, next meeting. Next meeting, we need to have a question. Actually, keep it for the next meeting.
Okay.
We should make a next meeting.
Should I write the...
GE produces so many diverse products available, especially in our hardware stores, home electronics outlets. Is it time for a GE boycott? My family and I live directly across the street from this plant since 1999. What harmful effects have we really been exposed to? I want to draw your attention to the one-page handout. It talks about air emissions and water emissions. Does anyone want to add to that? If you didn't get that one-pager, see me, I'll email it to you. Heather.
Again, I'll reiterate that it's important to ask the Toronto Public Health if there's a way for them to do a more in-depth study of the community for people who've lived in the neighborhood for a long time. That may be worth pursuing.
Yeah. And as I was saying before about like long-term low-dose exposure, like and internalized emitters, there are cellular effects that are, it's cumulative. The longer you're exposed, even if it's a small amount, it will affect you on a cellular level, which also creates like long-term health effects and intergenerational effects for generations to come. So yes, there's...
residents be tested to see how much radiation or poisoning they have?
Yes. I'm not sure what you'd probably have to go through the Canadian... The CNSC. The CNSC would be the corporation or the federal regulatory body to ask about that in terms of getting funding, and maybe you want to talk to Sula about...
The government won't do it. Don't even worry about asking unless you really want to get into a fight. They won't do it because they know there's a problem.
I would just suggest before getting very nervous about things, it might be a good place to start gathering your own information, visiting the facility and asking them for their emissions reports from the past few years. And they do pretty stringent testing of their emissions, and they should be accurate. So that's a good place to start, and then go from there. The 1,800 tons of uranium powder that is imported into the plant, in and out of the plant, 1,800 tons every year of uranium powder comes in and out of that plant, is destined to become nuclear fuel to be fissioned. The product of that fissioning will be 1,800 more tons of high-level nuclear waste. We have an obligation not to have any part of this process.
Right. 2 minutes, Sandra.
I'm sorry.
I can't talk to my own question here.
2 minutes. You have 2 minutes.
Everyone has a question, Tim.
Actually,
I have to clarify.
1 minute.
Okay. We're part of the process here to make more nuclear waste. 1,800 more tons of nuclear waste. I'm saying don't be NIMBY about this. We are part of that process.
Right.
Yeah. Right now in Ontario we have 46,000 tons of high-level nuclear waste, which is going to have to be babysitted until eternity.
That's right.
So I'm calling for the abolition of all nuclear fissioning.
Okay, what is being emitted from the plant? Ionizing radiation, gamma, beta, alpha, particles, what?
Uranium particulate.
Derek said uranium particulates.
They call it fugitive emissions.
Fugitive emissions. Come to the mic, Derek. Please.
I'll be quick. The thing you're concerned about is fugitive uranium emissions. Those are particulate, little uranium dust particles that escape through the filter, so on and so forth, that you could possibly inhale. The CNSC, the regulator, allows them, I think it's 760 grams a year. That's like having a speed limit on Davenport of 1,000,000 miles an hour. GE will never get to that limit because it's what they've decided is an acceptable limit. It's not a safe limit because there's no consideration taken in for internal low-level exposure. And that is what you're worried about. Don't get bogged down when they're talking about gamma and 1 millisievert per year. That's not important. It's the internal emitters like the uranium particulate that would come out of that plant, which they're allowed to do 760 grams a year. Luckily, they probably have never even come close to that, but there's still a danger.
Okay, so listen, we all know that uranium is really bad and the effects are horrible. What I want to know is, do we have an option to shut this plant down, move it somewhere else, or revoke the license? Because if they have due diligence to inform the public and they didn't do that, obviously, that's what everyone's saying. We have politicians here, we have other people from the community, we have SELA with the legal aspect. Can we shut the plant down? That is having an effect, so what do we do about it? Like, that's the important thing.
Well, I've made it clear that I'm not allowed to give legal advice. It's certainly a legitimate question.
What's the question?
Be revoked. That's a yes or no.
Well, it's not just a yes or no question because it requires analysis.
Can you repeat the question?
Can the plant be shut down? And yeah, okay.
I was talking with Joe and Shine about this in the back earlier, and he's on the federal level, and this is a federal issue. So he said that
provincial. John is provincial. Andrew Cash?
Oh, I was talking to Andrew Cash. Sorry. And he said his first step is going to be to try and change the way that these disclosures are done. Like having a meeting in Ottawa for something that's happening here does not help us. So he's trying to make changes, and that's his first step. So he thinks that the fact that nobody knew about this is a big red flag, and he might be able to move the issue based on that. So that's our hope from that.
So just to finish what I was saying before, feel free to contact SELA and do an inquiry and we can look into the matter for you. That's the best I can do. I can't give you an answer off the top of my head.
Great.
Guys, take them up on that offer. Anyone here can apply to SELA for legal representation. We did it in Peterborough with Safe and Green Energy, and we shut down shield source tritium signs that was emitting a massive amount of radiation into the air. It was emitting 5 to 9 times more than they had estimated, and they actually went over their legal limit by twice, and there's no fine, there's no punishment for this company, and they're trying to start up again. So I highly recommend you take Kira up on that offer.
But instead of individual taking up the offer, is there any possibility of the group taking the offer?
Good idea. And all I can suggest, because we have to leave, is to leave your email address and we'll get some, we'll organize future meetings and invite you and we'll break up into groups and we'll set up committees.
And residents associations do apply to us as a group. That's one way to do it. As long as it's formally organized in some way.
They have one. Okay. Popcorn comments, because it's 10 to 9. We got to be up by 9 o'clock. Popcorn comments.
And we're doing a rally to the plant right now.
We're going to march to the plant. Some of us are going to stay and pack up all the chairs. Please leave us with a small cash donation. Leave your email address. Thank you, everybody. Stay in touch. Beautiful. Thank you. 50 more questions. Go ahead. Come to the mic.
Yeah, nobody from GE showed up.
Grab some of the free literature on the table to my left. Free handout.
gave you so much time to do all this you can find online. Audience should never choose to. This was not a community meeting. This was like an information
Just real quick, there's going to be teaching this Saturday, 6 Smith Hall on the University of Toronto campus. Mark Borrow will be there, Art Sterrett, Wes Elliott, a lot of really amazing speakers, and a whole 3 hours that we is dedicated to strategizing. It's about Emperor's plans to reverse the Line 9 pipeline, compare Carson, Bitterman, through Toronto, that follows a long ditch, so it's going to go through very populated areas. So please come and learn that.
Good.
We're Loretta line, folks.
Here's a PSA. Well, you're talking to her.
Yes, yes.
What's going on?
Loretta line, folks. Yeah.
I made it. Very
Are
late.
you coming to the Dean show after this?
No, it's so late.
Hey, free will.
I can't believe you're gonna bug him tonight.
Huh?
It's like baby watch.
Well, we're going to be there, but we're not going to, if she's giving birth, we're not going to live stream it.
Don't live stream, that's so terrible.
No.
And that PSA.
What?
Oh, he has a PSA.
She's got something.
I don't have nothing to say. No.
Loretta
It was lovely
Lyne.
from what I saw.
Okay.
PSA, public service announcement, or whatever you want to call it. I strongly encourage you to go to what Shakura was announcing, the no pipeline, the tar sands come to Toronto, no line 9, but which is also part of the Building Bridges conference, I think. But
I have no
what I am inviting you to is another event. If you like the growing and what's like the art of life, permaculture, the permaculture project GTA.com. It's our annual gathering. It's called the Permaculture Living Convergence. So you'll find all that on the Permaculture Project GTA or TPPGTA.com, one or the other, and it's happening on the east side of Toronto.
Okay.
And because permaculture is not just about growing food and stuff, it's about growing community and relationships.
I desperately need a smoke.
Half underground. Yeah, I'm off to the Rouge River on my way out of town tomorrow. I'm stopping at the Rouge River on Morningside.
To see.
It's open.
Yeah. Most of it's underground.
They may have actually. Apparently they've been in there doing some work. I talked to somebody from Environmental Defense today, and he told me he thinks it's buried now. I'll find out.
Do you want me to pitch this to the live stream? Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for your work on this issue. Megan told me she got you. And
She did. Megan rocks. Although Zach probably got to her. And who knows?
It was Zach, Megan.
She rocks.
Can we do that outside? I desperately need a smoke, and we're gonna rally back to the GE plant. So we're gonna have tons of time. Okay?
I know, but I'm gonna go to.
I know.
How many people are watching over live stream?
We peaked at 60. We're at 41 now.
Okay.
Worldwide.
Hi, live stream community.
Even Iceland is watching us.
Oh, that's great. Iceland, we gotta follow your lead on something. All right. I just want to pitch you on this real quick.
Okay, but right outside.
Okay.
Well, I have a smoke, which I know a lot of the regulars are probably laughing.
Tomorrow in Kensington Market at 6 o'clock.
What's happening tomorrow?
Just regular GA Day.
Okay.
Wait a minute. It's been.
Okay, GA Day is at
where?
6 p.m. at Kensington
Where at
Market.
Kensington?
In the park. In the park.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Hi, live stream community.
Look at
I'm
that. Look at
Sakura.
it,
You might remember me from such protests as Occupy Toronto and Protest Barrett Gold. So, I want to tell you guys about this protest that's happening.
That's what we got.
Or it's not a protest, it's a teach-in. It's an all-day teach-in, and roughly half of the teach-in.
Where, this Saturday?
It's going to be this Saturday at Sid Smith Hall.
100 St. George Street.
100 St. George Street. And
free lunch.
Yeah, you can't beat it. It's going to be great. Please.
What are the hours?
It's 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And almost half of it, like 2/3 of it, or 1/3 of it, is going to be dedicated to actually organizing a resistance to this pipeline deal. So basically, you know,
Line 9.
Line 9.
It goes from Windsor to Montreal, correct?
Well, Line 9,
Sarnia.
It goes from Sarnia to Montreal and eventually Maine. You know, as we've seen, pipelines have become a huge political issue in both the states with the Keystone XL and Northern Gateway with the Enbridge pipeline up there, and throughout BC. And that's for a brand new pipeline. What we have here is now they want to send tar sands bitumen through a nearly 40-year-old pipeline.
Which that's thick oil with sand mixed in.
And chemicals.
Yes. So what they want to do is they don't want to transport regular crude, although it's interesting because in the NEB hearings to get the first part approved from Sarnia to Hamilton, they actually did not admit that they were going to transport dilbit, which is diluted bitumen. But of course, diluted bitumen is much different than regular crude oil. Bitumen is actually fairly tar-like, and so they have to add a chemical condensate to it in order and heat it up in order for it to move through the pipes. It has a much more corrosive texture to it. It's been compared to sandpaper. So what you have is this corrosive, tar-like substance. You add a chemical to it and heat it up to run it through these pipes. So it's more likely to create a spill, and it has created a rupture in 2010 in the Kalamazoo pipeline, Line 6B. It's part of the same network. We're protesting Line 9. Kalamazoo is Line 6B, same exact lining, about the same age.
They're trying to mix us up, but we were onto them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit crazy because Enbridge does not really have a good record in terms of spills.
Oh
in
my
fact,
God,
very
Enbridge.
ironically,
Are they behind Line 9?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So Enbridge,
They
Polaris,
are like, oh my, sorry. Go ahead.
so Enbridge, Polaris did a study on them, which is an NGO in Canada, and
Who is
they averaged
Polaris
Institute, and Enbridge averaged one spill every 5 to 6 days. Yes,
Not
every 5 to
months,
6
not
period, over
years.
about a 10-year period, and
So one a week.
so
Well,
more than 1 a week.
Their own record said 803 spills from 1999 to 2010. That was Enbridge's own records.
Exactly.
So that's 75-ish spills a year. So more than 1 a week. Yeah.
Yeah, more than
Huh?
1 a week.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's a beef samosa.
And they were
Given
heavily
to me, but I
criticized
didn't eat it.
for the
Thank you.
Line 9 spill because they didn't respond to it, or sorry, the Line 6B spill because they didn't respond to it for the first 17 hours. And so you would think that this Line 9 would be a highly scrutinized project, right? but it's not true, because with the cuts that Harper has made to environmental impact
Exactly,
assessment,
I was just going to say.
it's not even going to have an environmental impact assessment. The first part of it from Sarnia to Hamilton was approved, and they didn't even admit that they want to their real plans of piping bitumen.
Well, there was a study that came out not too long ago that said there's 19 out of 20 spills will not even be detected by their leak detection systems.
And so much of it's underground. It's really hard to see.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How are they getting away with these advertisements on TV saying how safe it is?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, we're helping the community with the safe, steaming the stuff out of the. How do they get away? I know. It's money. I know. It's a hypothetical.
We got deer feeding station.
Right? How do they get away with that?
That's
They're
it's
misinformation.
Yeah, tar sands is comparing itself to itself and saying because in situ is an open pit mining, it's better than that. In situ mining, in fact, basically divides up the land so much that it's terrible for the environment and for the animals. They're practicing in situ mining
through the soil and destroys the land. It's not safe. Come on, give me a break.
Now
it's ridiculous, and they've noticed a 70%. Let me finish. A 70% decrease in the caribou population where they're doing the in situ mining. So it's who knows if it's slightly worse or slightly better than open pit mining, but the fact is that the areas where they're doing this are complete sacrifice zones where the environments are being completely devastated, and that's the tar sands. In terms of pipelines, what we're going to worry about is these spills. And like someone was mentioning, was it you, that many of these leaks they might not even be able to detect, and most of the pipeline is actually underground. Yes.
Not to disrupt your flow, but since you are a mining specialist and this whole evening is about uranium, tell us some uranium open pit mining stories. Not to change the subject, but to keep it on focus. Well, except this live stream is about the GE plant, and we're about to do a rally there.
It's about the GE plant, but I think it's also about environmental issues facing Toronto. And the fact is that they want to pipe, the Line 9 pipeline already goes right along Finch. And so this is going to be piped through heavily populated areas. When the
above ground? Above ground? What? Is that above ground?
Watersheds in Ontario.
Exactly, including
the
Grand River.
Is it above ground or below ground?
It's both above and below ground.
Oh my God.
It's the one that's exposed in the Rouge River.
Yeah, and it's already been identified through studies that if there was a spill in the wrong place, it could impact all of Toronto's water supply.
Rouge River.
And so I think that a lot of people are going to be interested. I mean, I can speak to uranium, though it isn't my specialty, but of course, it is a death sentence to communities to have uranium mines, especially open pit ones. But I just think that this Enbridge question is very relevant, and it's something that we can act on this weekend, and it was my purpose for coming to this meeting was to spread awareness about it.
Sure. It's all the same thing.
That's at 100 St. George,
You can't talk about a person's
it's
health
at
by just talking about the left foot.
Sakura,
it's the whole
issue,
right?
Type in the website for further information? Is there a website or info?
If they Google Line 9 campaign, they'll find it. Also, let's see. I believe it's Line 9 campaign.
Went up and took
.wordpress.com.
Pipelines
you type that in?
But I'm not sure.
So when I read, oh, it's much worse than I even envisioned. Because when I read it in the paper, it said that Enbridge had put this concrete barricade around it to protect the pipe. I'm like, okay, well that sounds good. And then when I went up there, it's about 36 cinder blocks held together with wire that they just dump on top of the pipe. Most of it is downstream.
Yeah. So if someone can get the, we're hoping that's the right address, URL. Someone can double check and post it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for that.
You want to throw that up here?
Okay. I'm going.
Awesome. I have one. Great. Yeah, so
I can bitch tar sands, all that.
Tar sands, uranium.
Crazy, right? Like, and the crazy thing is too is that Canada is going around to other countries and saying, "Oh, Canada is such a developed nation. You should adopt our environmental policies."
They have no vision.
Yeah, and by the way, do you want our asbestos as well?
It's easy to keep doing the same thing that we've been doing, and that's why they want to exploit the tar sands, because it's money and it's easy. They're not worried about
because peak oil
20, 30 years from now. They're thinking about themselves right now and their own, I guess, political career.
Yeah,
which is over
and
come
coming
next
out
election.
with a stable feeling dollar in a time of, like, Canada wants to be like the stable dollar in all of the unstable economies, and they're doing it by completely wholesaling out
destabilizing the environment.
It's incredibly short-term thinking to position Canada in a global context as like this whatever leader, like, these people like care about that kind of shit, but it's not really important. It is completely making stupid decisions about our future. He's completely slashing environmental impact assessments. On the same exact day that line was
what he wants to do. So you remove those obstacles.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what this
environmental
free trade agreement with China is all about too, right? Really trying to lock us in. So then if there's a democratic decision to not allow for a pipeline, well then China can sue us. Oh wow. It's things like that. It's right now why everyone's up in arms about the China free trade agreement as opposed to other free trade agreements is that this one imposes on us what we typically impose on other countries. So this whole thing about if they have environmental regulations, we could sue them through a tribunal, to make that not so. And there's a Canadian company right now, Pacific Rim, which is suing the country of El Salvador for disallowing them to mine after doing the studies and realizing that metals mining is not appropriate for a country that has a higher population density than China and has very fragile water sources. They decided it was not appropriate use of the land, and they said no, and now they're being sued by Pacific Rim, a Canadian company, for $100 million. And that court case has already gone through the first stages and been granted that legitimacy to go forward in the CAFTA tribunal. And Canada is not a signatory in CAFTA, so it's a Canadian company that's going through a dormant U.S. subsidiary in order to sue.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, it's really awful. And I mean, the thing is that community that was resisting the Canadian mine Pacific Rim, because of the resistance efforts, every single person, and I'm talking 5 assassinations in the course of 6 months, every single person that went to step up against the mine company got assassinated, and everyone was getting death threats down to the youth that were doing a radio show at the local radio station that was progressive. And it wasn't just assassinations, it was being found at the bottom of a well missing all of your fingernails and toenails kind of stuff. And it was definitely just again and again the leaders of the resistance that were being targeted for this. And it went on high level for 6 months. One guy was shot 7 times in the back, didn't die, and then even with all the human rights observers around him, they went back and killed him 6 months later. And then it happened a year afterwards as well. It started up again.
Wow.
It's really, it's just really intense stuff. The stuff that goes on and is completely sanctioned and supported by our, global free trade infrastructure. We're looking at that kind of stuff here now, and that's why everyone's up in arms.
That's what's going
They don't
on.
talk about it.
No. And even if they did, they don't want to hear it.
They wouldn't be watching reality TV if they wanted to hear it.
Exactly.
That's true. That's true.
Isn't that what we've been trained in North America, to just be little corporate slaves and go to our jobs and come home and be entertained and buy stuff that we don't need. Right? Yeah.
That'll end up in landfill anyway.
Exactly, right? I haven't had to buy anything all summer long because everything I've needed has been at the edge of somebody's lawn.
I know.
They just put everything that they worked all their lives for in boxes that they just go here because we don't need it. So why work so much? Why not spend time with your family?
What's more important, right?
What's wrong with our world?
That's one of the things that Noam Chomsky reflected on that. Like he can't fathom that with all the progress and automation and everything, that people are working more hours now.
Because we're more materialistic.
No,
we've
been. Sorry, I'm gonna no.
You're gonna disagree with me?
Totally. We've been totally trained by the corporations it started in the 50s with TV dinners, right? And they started marketing, and then they started marketing the children in the 70s when they realized that if they market to the children, they've got a buyer for the rest of their life. All right, and you can see the difference in people that grew up without a television versus those that grew up with a television.
Everybody has like several now.
No, actually, no.
Someone gave me a TV and I gave it away. It was like,
I don't have a TV. I don't have a TV. I don't have a TV, and I don't read newspapers.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you're not gonna look at the crap that you read in your newspaper? Is there anything in the newspaper that the government didn't okay for you to know?
I don't know. The Toronto Star is okay. They had stuff about the uranium facility. You gotta pick through all. You gotta pick through all the garbage to find the little nuggets.
On the back page.
Well, how do we find the most
apparently stuff? The original. Apparently, GE put something in the Toronto Star to tell us that they were there, right?
Yeah.
Well, nobody found it. Nobody got it. Not even our politicians. So.
Yeah, I was buried in the want ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they should have an open house
between
with,
massage parlors and escorts, maybe. I don't know.
No, that's now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, I don't think people are the way they are. I think people were different. People was great though.
So many people came.
Do it like what do you do?
People that
You're
were
taught
making
that you
noise and
get
being
married,
upset,
you have a baby.
I thought they were going to
spend
come out
1 year at home with it, and then you stick it in an institution, and it grows up in an institution. That's the right thing to do because you need to go back to work to pay for that institution. And then you institutionalize your child for the rest of its life because it just grows up and then just keeps going.
Some of us break with tradition. I haven't lost all hope.
But it's very much the minority.
I think I'm hoping there's a silent majority that are just kind of, they know, but they don't act on it.
How many people live in this community, and how many people we all fit in a room tonight?
Well, yeah,
there's like one block of houses here would have filled that room tonight if people cared about what was going on in their
bringing me down.
Sorry. No, it's reality.
She was saying that
I think, people
you can't get too, I know, I understand there's a lot of things to be, I guess, upset or depressed over, but you can't focus on it. You gotta.
I don't think you should be upset or depressed about it,
but
I think you should be motivated.
Yeah.
I tried to motivate 5 people I live with to come tonight.
And they didn't.
No.
Well, maybe they're in shock. They just found out.
No, they didn't. I've been bitching and complaining about this for a long time.
Maybe they just
I've been trying to motivate these people since January. I've been trying to motivate the people I live with since January when I moved in there. That to become, they all have these fabulous skills and they're not using them for good stuff.
No, thanks.
Oh, okay.
You know me.
Yeah, we peaked at about 60 viewers. We're at 40 right now.
Nice.
And we got the Devine show after this.
That's right.
Do you mean 9 tonight or 9 tomorrow? We have to be able to
And I told Kathy, look, if you're giving birth today, I won't live stream it, I promise.
No pressure.
She says, if you live stream it, I'm going to charge you a premium.
Mother Nature's predictable. It's never the due date. No, it's never the due date.
All right.
Oh, hopefully it will turn into a pumpkin or something. No,
Yarrrr.
pumpkin. Oh,
So
not a nuclear pumpkin.
So you just came from the GE plant? Isn't it ridiculous to have a police presence?
They have a command post set up. There's like nobody here.
We're going to rally at the GE plant from here.
Actually,
Yeah, but then we go for a beer.
Benefit show and Tester Logic and Lee Reed.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that's tonight.
Yeah, it's tonight.
Where?
At the Bike Pirates.
Oh no, maybe we should say, Angela, let's go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. It's gonna be
Like
fun.
pirates, they're so close.
And it's alt media.
You got way
Did someone say pirates? Yarrrr.
Bike Pirates.
Yarrrr.
We're all gonna go to a party at
Reuse,
Bike Pirates,
recycle.
which is on Bloor and around
Lansdowne, just a hair east of Lansdowne on
There
the
we
north
go.
side of Bloor.
Just a hair
The
east.
Bike Pirates.
Bike Pirates. It's benefit
For rebuilding
for
bridges.
Toronto Media Co-op and YU Free Press, which is the York University Free Press, which is a badass alt thing. It's an initial party for the Rebuilding Bridges conference, which is happening like all week, I guess.
Yeah, starting
and
tonight.
This is part of the Rebuilding Bridges conference, actually, and that's put on by York, and it's all free, so people should check that out. Free information and entertainment.
Yarrrr.
And today is a benefit, so we
Yarrrr.
can throw down.
Well, we got 40 viewers wanting more information about this whole GE plant. You want to give us more info?
Well,
the whole world's watching, by the way.
General Electric Hitachi is a multinational war profiteer
And the
corporation.
Fukushima
That's
plant is built by them, right?
Actually, I'm not sure.
It is. It is.
Is it?
It is.
It probably is.
We know how safe
They're one of
that
the
is.
oldest assholes in like the corporate colonial agenda of establishing the Western paradigm of like actively profiteering off of like the decimation of like indigenous people in their communities, and then like finding a way to turn that into like basically the reason. Okay, this is the real truth behind General Electric. The only reason that we have nuclear power today is because the waste is used to make bombs. We wouldn't have it otherwise. It's too expensive. It takes too much money to build a facility, maintain a facility, do all the refurbishments. It's got a crazy half-life, and then the waste no one even knows what to do with except for make bombs. So it's not like an accident that this is playing out in the way it is. I would suggest for people who want to know more to like, I don't know, research some stuff, like do some Google searches, go to the library, like look up some stuff around like how those big corporations got set up in your community and like what they do. It's like all on their website a lot of the time. And there's regulatory bodies like the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission who have records, transcripts of hearings that show every blemish, if it gets brought to the table, and talk to people in your community. I guess that's all I have to say.
Nice. People are liking your vibe on the live chat.
Really? Is that what they said?
Yeah, read. Except for that Greg Renew.
I thought she was probably the worst speaker.
Yeah, no.
Greg Renew.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Thank you. We all know.
I
He's
know,
an
I've heard
idiot.
about that guy.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Heavy troll activity tonight. It's true. I was surprised that there wasn't as much.
Oh, but you haven't been following the live
Greg
chat.
Renew. I can't even believe that guy.
Isn't he an idiot?
Is he in there? Like, why does he exist?
He's an idiot. He's getting paid well by
At
the 1%.
least she didn't lie like Sass.
What did he Michael.
Say? What did he say?
So remind us about the GA tomorrow night.
Okay.
At Bellevue Park in Kensington Market, right?
Yeah, 6 o'clock on Fridays and Sundays.
6 o'clock. So it's twice a week.
Yeah.
So we're going to rally now.
We got cases of it in print. Well, I'm not coming in for 6 in the morning.
Hey!
Hey, GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side.
Hey.
GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side.
Did you finalize that song?
No, I still haven't been able to do it yet. Friendly neighborhood uranium. Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you want to be exposed? Look out! Here comes uranium. Yeah! Here comes uranium. Here comes uranium! And I can't remember the rest. Help me with the rest of it. What did we come up with?
The GE side, what the Huda, and the what the Huda.
We'll get the tabby in a sec. Come on, take a little. I was working on something. What is it?
Okay, we're going to go downstairs if anyone wants to join and have a look and have some visual.
GE-Hitachi Davenport makes nuclear ceramic pellets for. That's as far as I got. Then the meeting was taking place.
Shut it down. Toronto is a people's town. Occupy. Shut it down. Toronto is a people's town. Occupy. Shut it down.
Shut GE down.
Shut people's town. Occupy. Shut GE down. Toronto is a people's town. Occupy. Shut it down. GE-Hitachi, you can't hide. We can see your uranium side. GE, you can't hide. We can see your
radiant eyes.
Radioactive side.
GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side.
Is anybody else inside?
You can't hide. We can see your uranium side. GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. GE, you can't hide. We can see your
radioactive side. Uranium, uranium, friendly neighborhood uranium. Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you want to be exposed? Look out! Here comes uranium. Ah, here comes uranium. And then you do the last part.
Here comes uranium.
Okay, let's line up, everybody. Come on. It's a good meeting. Good meeting.
Oh, you want to do a song or something?
That's
or
it.
Something?
Song. Where's our singers? GE-Hitachi.
So are you coming to Devines after this?
No.
No.
It's gonna be like so late.
Yeah, it's gonna start at 11 today.
It's crazy late. That's way past my bedtime.
You got a bedtime?
An old lady.
Oh, get out of here! Paddywhack time for that comment.
I'm an old lady. Did you get a butt?
Yeah.
Make that?
Did you get a little flaggy?
Yep. Now people are gonna say, I got this.
And then I got
What's the yellow?
Mustard and ketchup.
Make nuclear ceramic
Ketchup and mustard.
Not all I need is a hot dog.
You could put a little like wiener.
That should be shut
wiener
down.
with it.
Yeah.
Quiet.
So where are we going?
Are we walking?
Well, they're deciding right now.
That's hilarious. It's only 2 kilometers.
Yarrrr. Nice hat there, brother. Is that rainproof? Is that rainproof, that hat? I love that hat.
Well, it's for sun and rain. It works on both.
And where's it from?
It's from Indonesia.
Nice.
It's made out of bamboo. It's all renewable, how shall I say, materials.
Nice.
Jill.
Nice. Looks. Is it bamboo?
Yeah, it's all bamboo.
Yeah.
100% bamboo.
Nice. Looks gorgeous.
Yeah, I
Where do you get one in Toronto?
No, I got it from Indonesia.
Okay.
I was there.
Angela, we're gonna let's go. Let's go together so people.
What's
I'll
give you the ideas because I don't want to say it's bad.
Okay.
Nuclear, no thanks.
GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. GE,
you can't hide. We will see your radioactive side.
GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. You can't hide. We can see your radioactive side.
You can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. We can't hide. We can see your radioactive side.
GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. You can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. Eco side. side, radioactive side.
Stop this ecocide!
Renewables are doable!
Renewables are doable! Renewables are doable!
And they're being done everywhere, many places! Yeah. Can I tie my bag on your bike?
Sure.
Okay.
But I will
get the one bag.
Yarrrr. Yeah, so this is despicable what GE's doing. No one in the neighborhood
Oh my god,
knows
it's like
nothing.
on me.
No one in the
No, I
neighborhood
had
knows.
no idea until that now thing did a... I'm so bad at talking when it's on me. Don't turn it away from me.
Okay.
I can't. Turn it on you.
No, please. See that? I see. Since I'm directing, I could do that.
Yeah, I can't speak with the camera on me. I'm terrible at it. It makes me nervous.
Uh-oh. Practice makes perfect. You should have your own show.
No, that's exactly why I couldn't have my own show.
Oh.
I would just sit there and I'd be like, so, yeah. Today I ate some noodles.
Noodles, eh?
It would be called, What Did Loretta Eat Today?
Guess what she ate?
And what kind of shoes am I going to wear? That's all I would have to
What
say.
color is my underwear? That rhymes.
It's a great show. Look at this wicker store. It's like so
Slow down a bit there, Zach.
You got to show everybody the wicker store.
Zach.
Slow down a little bit. We got stragglers, yeah. Thanks,
yeah. If she focused on emissions.
We're going on Davenport.
I know, but she's.
You know, we did a film shoot in that building in the 90s. And
No.
Yeah, they rented out a huge warehouse portion, and they were filming some TV show. I can't remember what it was, a kids program. And they were they were in there for a year, and I remember being like one of the art department.
That GE plant there.
Yeah. I remember being like, I was an art department guy. I was a set building and all that kind of stuff. And we'd go outside and we'd see these trucks rolling in and these drums coming off. And I looked at it and I thought, I don't know, was it paint company? Like, what is that? And now I know it is like horrific.
Yeah.
That I was like standing right beside these trucks that were unloading barrels of uranium.
And not
Raw
told. We were like
raw uranium, which they convert into the yellow powder, which then gets shipped. And powder, you know how airborne powder gets? Then they ship that powder to Peterborough to get processed into uranium pellets, which then gets shipped to nuclear power plants. Who knows where?
It's disgusting. It's just the whole thing is just so corrupt, all the way through.
In a residential area. And then what that guy was saying,
the fact that uranium is not listed on the list of pollutants, so that's how they get away without.
Well, who would expect to be so stupid? And they've been doing it for 50 years.
I know.
Ay caramba.
It's insane. It's insane. It's a felony. It should be a felony. Like,
can you imagine if, like, some of the residents just are finding out? Like, oh my God.
Remember that there's four condominiums being built across the street.
I know.
That all used to be GE land on both sides of Lansdowne between Dupont and Davenport. Now there's just that one last little facility, and it's already heavily caked with PCBs.
Yeah.
Now add that.
So maybe all the potential buyers of those condominiums should be told.
Yeah.
Cross over. Cross over. Let's cross. Let's cross.
Let's stick together.
Yeah.
Yo, let's cross!
GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side. GE, you can't hide. We can see your radioactive side.
Your what?
Radioactive.
Oh, radioactive.
Like your rectum.
Your rectum, eh?
GE, you can't hide. We can see your uranium side.
Uranium side. Missed you at home this year.
Yeah, I was busy.
Yeah. All that glitters is not gold, my friend.
Oh, shiny. Oh, later. It's busy right now.
GE, you can't hide. You are committing ecocide.
Have you another?
GE,
Hmm?
you can't
Have you more
hide. You are committing ecocide.
Yeah, my hands are full.
GE, you can't hide.
Give me a sec.
You are committing ecocide.
Were you there last night?
Where is the environmental?
I didn't know about it.
Isn't he around to protect us?
He's there to collect the paycheck.
Here's Dorothy.
So we're walking along Downpour. We're getting to Lansdowne right now. This all used to be GE land. It's still heavily polluted with PCBs in the ground, and now it's residential housing.
Even though they said they cleaned it up.
They didn't clean up shit.
And if they did, whose backyard did they put it in?
What?
Well, apparently it went to Quebec. Apparently tons of it was shipped out to Quebec. That's what someone at the last night meeting was saying.
I turn on the news every once in a while.
Where in Quebec? I don't know. Cree country up north? Probably.
I bet it's on native land.
Yeah.
Probably.
Unless they stopped in Port Hope along the way.
Ay, caramba.
Whatever. You know, he's having these affairs, these women, cheating on his wife.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, look at all this. This used to be all GE. Now it's all housing. Just packing them in.
Their transformer area, right? They were making the transformers in here?
Everything. Their head office was right there.
Okay.
It used to be at the southeast corner of Davenport and Lansdowne.
Okay.
And huge factory.
Okay.
The biggest burial
it's ridiculous
for the
that they've-
PCBs is right beside us.
Right
It's
here.
ridiculous that they've turned this into a residential area. Like,
Yeah, it should never be.
for all the radioactive business that's been going
Toxic
on here since
carcinogens.
1965, and now
Well,
they're going to let people live here. Like,
Well,
this
also
is
they said
insane.
they've been here for 100 years actually. It's only been the
Probably.
uranium processing for 50 years, but they've been here for 100 years.
And look at the name of that street.
Foundry Avenue. Yeah.
Foundry Avenue. Ay, caramba.
They named a laneway in Regent Park Picking Coke Lane.
What? What is it? Kicking coke?
Yeah, because in the coal refining process, you used to the byproduct of coal refinery was called coke.
That's right.
Before coke was coke, and coke was coke.
That's right.
If you get me. And so you know, in an impoverished neighborhood where youth sometimes turn to selling drugs because they have no education and like you know they have no hope.
Yeah.
Figure that one out. It's just so insulting.
Occupy Toronto. Occupy Toronto's live stream right now is live.
Okay, yes, I'm concerned.
Just Google it.
But we're protesting the production of uranium that's been going on here.
No,
for
just
50
Google
years.
Occupy Toronto live stream. First one,
Yeah,
go
was
there,
that
and it's in the archives.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel aware of this.
Yep, live stream team.
Cross, you guys!
No, I don't. Sorry.
We're going to the plant!
Going to the plant wall.
No, it's on this side.
Oh well.
We should do like critical mass, you know, like cortex.
Yeah, well,
If social movement got on bikes, we'd be a lot quicker with it.
Yeah.
Gain a lot more ground.
I'm usually on a bike. If everybody got on a bike. You're not coming to the class?
That's Davenport, and north is Lansdowne.
Come on, you guys, cross! Okay, cross!
And look at all these houses that they built. It's pathetic.
They're just opening up.
Look at that.
Brand new houses.
They built these shortly after they cleaned up the PCBs, but they didn't let any of the residents know. So if GE is not letting these residents know that they're built on land with heavy PCBs, what are they going to say about the nuclear stuff?
They're
Yarrrr.
processing uranium over here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Woo, woo, woo! Doo, doo!
Yarrrr. We're losing numbers.
Yeah, that was a good turnout. Apparently there was another meeting where GE and their people came out last night, but I just found out about it tonight.
Really?
Yeah.
The nuclear is safe, don't worry about it meeting?
I don't know what it was called.
People are dying, but don't worry about it?
I don't know.
Meeting? Is that what they're holding? What, you know, that could only be, that could be the only thing they'd be meeting about.
So, Renif was here tonight.
Who? Renif.
Oh, watch it.
He's wearing the right color. I know, I was about to be like, if it was a cop, I would have just...
You are committing genocide.
Careful, if you touch his jacket with your flag, you get busted.
You can hide, we can see your tritium side.
And then part of the old GE plant across the street, they're now lofts, and then they've tore down the other part of the factory down there, and now they're building huge lofts on heavily polluted land to begin with, all PCB laced, and now we find out there's a nuclear plant. That is pretty crazy, Mike.
It's it makes me crazy, you know, to find out that I've been lied to my entire life.
Yeah.
I've lived in this city my entire life, and I'm only now finding out that this is going on. I feel so cheated.
Yeah.
You know, my faith in democracy is completely shattered.
So raped and pillaged.
I can't even begin to, like, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. Like, if I tried to, like, conduct my business for my life in such a corrupt and secretive way, I mean, I would receive, like, consecutive, you know, how many consecutive life sentences? Like, it's ridiculous. And these people get away with it.
Yeah, some people get life sentences just for smoking a joint. Compared to this,
yeah,
how many people are they killing?
Cancer medication. You know, among other cures, it's a medicinal plant, and people are incarcerated for decades for a medicinal plant. I'm not talking about organized crime that are like trying to, you know, reap huge profits from marijuana and other narcotics. I mean, we're talking about your regular everyday recreational user, and even more to the point, like our medicinal users. I mean,
medical marijuana.
You know, I work for a living. I do construction work. You know, I should have a card, or I shouldn't even need a card. I mean, I can take an aspirin for the pain. I can take a Tylenol for the pain. I can have a glass of wine. Why can't I have a little marijuana? What's the difference? And then meanwhile, the government is protecting these criminals, you know, working in an industry that's killing people, you know, that costs way more than
and it's getting worse and worse.
You know, this is not a democracy. This is not a free country. We're all prisoners here, and it's a dictatorship of people that are bent on the destruction of the planet, and you know,
for the profit of a few,
and endangering the lives of many for the profits of a very few, the 1%, as outlined by the Occupy movement and things like that. It's just, you know. But I mean, again, the problem is the banks. The banks make money, you know, fake money out of thin air and loan it to banks.
Fractional reserve banking.
And you know,
she feels like
we're never gonna change the system until we change the system. You know, we can fight against nuclear power all we want, but it's never going to change until we topple the corrupt people at the top of this whole fraudulent economic system.
Yep.
That's the truth of it. I mean, you know, I'm out here tonight because it's still worthwhile to protest. I mean, the only weapon, we don't have any guns. The only weapon we have is information. So, you know, I'm out here with the only weapon we have, and that's information. And we gotta share the information. If the industry that's supposed to inform us won't inform us, then we have to get the ball rolling, and we have to inform ourselves and our neighbors and our friends, our families, because our lives are at stake here. We're all in danger. Every time I turn on the tap and have a glass of water, I'm irradiating myself.
Ay caramba.
You know, you're supposed to put a drop of iodine in every pint of water you drink to lessen the effects of the radiation that's in our drinking water. From places like this, from places like GE-Hitachi that are dumping radioactive material down the drain. It's preposterous. It's preposterous. And here we have the soldiers of the banks protecting the plant here.
Field Command Unit.
Field Command Unit.
Look at them. It's more constant protest. Look at them.
The guns are owned by the bank, the police, and the army. And we have to, you know,
Someone shine a light on that?
We have to take it.
So, folks, we're one block north.
Okay, I thought it was.
We're one block north of Dupont.
Sign?
Yeah, hold that side of the flag. Okay, can I get some volunteers? We're gonna do a group photo in front of the sign here. We're gonna do a group photo in front of the sign. I need people to come in.
One block north.
Who wants to hold the other side?
Beside it, right
Beside it? Okay. Why don't you tell them?
We're one block north of Dupont, and that's Lansdowne right there, and we're looking west, and there's the plant. And it goes a whole block over. And we measured earlier in the evening with a Geiger counter, and the readings are through the roof.
Can some people stand behind the flag, please? This is sort of like a revolutionary directing. Sometimes you have to sort of like pump people up. It can be chaotic and you need to be spontaneous, but sometimes we need the photo op, and people need to collectivize to say that, look, this is significant. We're occupying this little chunk of land. It's really funny. This is greenwash, the way they put up the trees, and it's such a great place. But what's lurking behind is the GE plant. Yeah, be careful. Be careful. Yeah.
Can you give us a flag?
Maybe just a sign. They've got the flag.
Hold the flag up?
Sure. Yeah. You guys are gonna. Lynn, you can hold it with him. You can hold it. There. Okay. Now.
Okay, who's taking a picture?
How about GE? You can't hide. You're committing ecocide.
Yeah, make sure
you can't hide. You're committing ecocide. GE, you can't hide. You're committing ecocide.
GE, you can't hide, you're committing ecocide.
GE, you can't hide, you're committing ecocide.
GE, you can't hide, you're committing ecocide.
Occupy, shut it down. Toronto is a people's town.
Occupy, shut GE down.
Toronto is a people's town.
Occupy, shut GE down.
Toronto is a people's town.
Occupy, shut GE down. Toronto is a people's town. Occupy, shut it down. Toronto is a people's town. Occupy, shut GE down. Toronto is a people's town. Occupy, shut GE down. Toronto is a people's town.
Woo! Woo! One more uranium.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to the tune of Spider-Man. Here we go.
Do you know the one? Uranium fever has gone and got me down. Uranium fever is spreading all around, and that's all we have to. Those two.
Okay, let's try that.
So it goes. Uranium fever has gone and got me down. Uranium fever is spreading all around. Uranium fever has gone and got me down. Uranium fever is spreading all around. Uranium fever is gone and got me down. Uranium fever is spreading all around.
Woo!
Hey, what about-
So Spider-Man?
Yeah.
All right, so here we go.
You do one verse and we'll parrot it.
Uranium, friendly
Okay, wait,
neighborhood
no.
uranium.
Just
So that
uranium,
part.
uranium, then we'll do it.
Well,
Yeah.
friendly neighborhood uranium. Okay.
Make it simple. So
It's simple. It's like
Uranium.
Uranium, friendly neighborhood uranium. Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you want to be exposed? Look out! Here comes uranium. Yeah! Here comes uranium.
Here comes
uranium! Uranium. Friendly neighborhood uranium. Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you want to be exposed? Look out! Here comes uranium. Yeah! Here comes uranium. Here comes uranium.
One more time.
Okay. Uranium. Friendly neighborhood uranium. Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you want to be exposed? Look out! Here comes uranium. Here comes uranium. Here comes uranium.
Yeah.
Working on the second verse.
Spins a web, any size.
Spins
Any
along.
size.
Yes.
Any size. Look out! Here comes GE. Here comes
GE-Hitachi in Davenport.
Well, let's go the lyrics to the song. You know what we should do, you guys? Is as we continue to do our actions, think of doing GE-Hitachi the musical. And then only through teaching each other songs the whole way that tell the story.
Yes. And we got to get the Raging Grannies lyrics to some of
Yeah,
them.
we got to help them out.
And you guys got to start like we have in Montreal, the People's Choir.
Oh.
Yeah, we have a People's Choir that goes everywhere, and we have all kinds of songs, and we keep making new songs, and our songbook is getting thicker and thicker, and we bring a whole bunch of songbooks, so we get the crowd to sing. The People's Choir is for everyone.
So,
En français?
Ah bon, la chorale du peuple, c'est un paquet de monde qui prennent des vieilles chansons comme les Raging Grannies, comme les Mémés déchaînés, et qui transforment les mots pour une cause ou un sujet important. Et on apporte à tous les événements publics, comme les manifs ou quelques événements publics que ce soit, on arrive et puis on a des cahiers de chansons. Puis le cahier de chansons, il devient de plus en plus grand parce qu'on fait des nouvelles chansons régulièrement. Et puis, vous pouvez nous trouver sur choraldupeuple.org. If you want to know more about the People's Choir in Montreal and start your own here, it's la Chorale du Peuple, like CHORALEDUPEUPLE.org. Thank you.
Too late. I was going to take your flashlight and illuminate you.
Oh.
Why didn't I illuminate the shadow?
the Grays ceases, we'll have a harder time like Parliament.
Yarrrr, folks, and coming up, half hour after we end this transmission is Devine's First Nation show, Occupy Toronto, and the Occupy World's longest running weekly show since week 1, and it's week 57 now. So stay tuned after this. All Nations, all First Nations issues, and we have lots to talk about. You've been watching Devine's show since week 1.
I have, except now it's on too late, and I go to bed very early now.
Patty wax if you don't watch it.
I know, but it's baby watch tonight, so
yes.
I'm kind of excited.
Yarrrr.
I don't know what to say when the camera's on me.
Okay.
Turn it away.
Okay.
I feel like such an idiot. Like,
can you tell him when was the last time you got the mobile command unit here? When for something occupied, did you?
The only time we had one is the day of our eviction, almost a year ago today, on Wednesday, November 23rd.
So it's kind of rare to have the mobile command unit.
They don't have that ever.
Yeah, but the thing is basically in a year of Occupy, it's only been out one other time, so it is a surprise.
When we were evicted.
It's interesting, but I'm kind of overwhelmed.
Did they?
Oh, I think.
Yeah.
Where?
If you don't mind,
did they hide that?
Of course, but that's what I mean.
I
feel safer
but it's very telling that we only had like 15 people here, and we had more cops, and we had their command center, mobile command unit, and they're watching the televisions.
At what cost?
Yeah, the command center is right there.
I think I can see CSI.
Yeah, well, they're watching TV on there, but they probably use it, like, they're probably even watching the Occupy live stream, for all we know, in there. And
yeah, what do they have to show?
They don't show up to protest very often. I think it's when it's an exception in terms of Toronto protests, because it's nuclear, and we don't ever have nuclear protests.
Actually, if you analyze why they're here, that means GE has a lot of pull. So what are they hiding? What are they really hiding?
Oh, exactly. You can
get
on this like, little forest, this little pretend forest here. It's like this is your little chunk of. It's a little landscape.
That's
actually,
all that
it's
will
really
be left
wonderful.
Of the environment. When
it's really great. It's really interesting.
There's got to be a cockroach around here somewhere that'll last too.
Yeah.
No? Come on.
That'll last what?
At least a cockroach. They'll last a little longer than the plant.
Oh yeah.
There'll be a cockroach that'll outlive it all.
Yeah.
Or two.
Yarrrr.
Well, look, there's people.
Cockroach, but it may live longer.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
Yeah, you live right across the street. Why are you guys?
Yeah, they're looking in the window there. You see?
You silly people.
We're here for you. Hey, ask that dog to piss on GE.
They're like, why are you
Can you imagine if you own one of these houses going, oh my God, now try sell it. They just got devalued.
But remember, there's 4 condominiums going in over here. They're in the process of trying to sell them, right? And they have to sell 40% of them in order to get their bank money to build them.
And we know how to. The
office is right around the corner.
And we know how the developers run City Hall.
Yes, we most certainly know how the developers run City Hall. Ask Mark Grimes, he knows it very well.
Shanger, you know where Bike Pirates is?
Yes, it's on Bloor.
Go straight down here to Bloor.
It's on Bloor.
I want to go back up there and retrieve my vehicle.
About
Anybody
2/3,
ride or?
almost a block east. So hang a left.
On Bloor?
North side of Bloor.
I'll take the
east of Lansdowne.
Cool, yeah. Thanks for doing all you're doing, brother.
So hang a left. When you go down Lansdowne, hang a left.
So you're gonna walk from here?
I got another show to go to right now. We got Devine's First Nation show right after this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the speaker?
Devine's First Nation show.
The speaker that was there tonight?
No, Devine. Oh, you don't know Devine. It's our First Nation show, our longest running show since week 1, and it's week 57. So I'm going there right now.
We're going to Bike Pirates with an alternative media.
Toronto Media Co-op fundraiser.
It's right down on Bloor and Lansdowne.
Yeah, just east of Lansdowne. Just east. You just make a left on Bloor.
East of Lansdowne on the north side. Well, cut it short. So
It's right there. It's less than a block.
I'm gonna go back and get my truck. And then I'll meet you there.
Yarrrr.
Yarrrr.
Alrighty, folks.
Alrighty.
You've got a really good battery.
Oh yeah.
No, but
you were plugged in the whole time in there.
Oh yeah. I've done this before, I think.
Yeah. You have some experience.
We've been going
live streaming.
since 5:45.
It's the nuclear power.
We've been going for 4 hours. Actually, the batteries run out, but there's so much radiation here, it's just powering it all up.
Now my phone's like glowing.
Oh, is that a security guard in there behind the fence?
Yeah. So yeah, we've been going for 4 straight hours, folks, and I think we're done here. I'm gonna go to Devines. It's 10 o'clock now.
Are you gonna go
so
to
Devines show is
later?
starting in about a half hour. No, I got to go to Devines place. So my name's D. Shanger. Thank you for watching, and keep chatting on the live chat. We'll be back in about a half hour, all night long, with Devines First Nation show, Occupy Toronto, and the Occupied World's longest running live stream show, weekly live stream show. So if you're interested, yes, it is.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. No one produces more original weekly programming than Occupy Toronto.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. We're quite proud of that. So, and at 4 hours, and yeah. Okay, folks. We do a bit of this. And we'll see you.
See, I always thought it was that. I thought you were talking about that building on the corner. I didn't know it was here.
The black building?
No,
Yarrrr.
on the other side of the town.
Was I speaking too loud there, Sib? Civilian media, yarrrr. Thank you, Fred. Great modding work. And remember, folks, don't feed the trolls. Don't feed the trolls. And you know they're trolls because they're always against us. They don't provide anything new to the conversation except their own 1% spin to things. This is a very serious issue, and thank you, Fred109, for modding a great job. And everybody, we knew we're going to get heavy troll activity tonight because we've been at this for almost 400 days. This is day 397. So, and I've been involved since day 1. So is Civilian Media, and yeah. Okay, folks. So D. Shanger signing off. See you in half an hour.
Half an hour.
Okay. Yarrrr. That's right. No permit needed. Someone said. Anyways, we're done here. And yarrrr. Hey Georgia boy, this is Georgia boy. This is what you missed, and we're gonna be back in half hour with the Devines First Nation show there, Georgia boy. Okay, yeah, welcome there, Georgia. Yeah, and we've been worldwide audience tonight, and including Iceland, my homeland. Orn, bless everyone, Orn. Yarrrr. Okay, again, ciao, folks. See you on the live chat.
Bye.
Oh, thank you, Loretta Line.
I'm just a wannabe journalist.
Ciao.
I like my job.
We need lots.